Good morning, Copers. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. How are you guys doing? Richard Cheese Week carries on. Pour your misery down. Pour your misery down on me. Let's get into it because this Nick video is long and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through the whole thing. So let's just, I already cut out some of the, I already cut out some of the things I had bookmarked. I'll save them for tomorrow. This is a long video. I want to try to get through as much as possible. Of course, breaking news, Hulk Hogan has passed away, age 71. Very sad. We all love Hulk Hogan. I know Ozzy also died earlier this week, Ozzy Osbourne, and I didn't comment on it. I wasn't really a huge Ozzy fan. I kind of like Black Sabbath. I think it's okay. I don't dislike it as much as I dislike heavy metal. As you guys know, I'm just not a heavy metal fan. I was kind of a low-key Black Sabbath fan, you could say. Mostly because my one friend in high school who I would get drunk with loved it and wanted to prove to me how good it was. So he would make me listen to it a lot when we were getting drunk on Crown Royal and Coca-Colas. And it's pretty good. It's not, I don't like listen to a lot of Black Sabbath in my day to day, but it's pretty good stuff. But I just don't like his family that much, especially his wife. Especially his wife. I hate to hold that against the guy, but I really did not like his wife, Sharon. And I love Hulk Hogan, so I'm sad about that. You know, 71's not bad though. It's a little young in this day and age for a guy who takes care of himself, but it's the steroids, man. They're bad for your heart. They're just not, it's not good for your heart. I mean, anybody can go at any time. I'm not saying it's even necessarily because of that, but that does seem like if I was a betting man, I would bet that maybe the steroids shortened his life a bit. That's how it goes. But he will be missed. He will be remembered, an absolute legend, somebody who was a big part of our childhood. And, pretty fucking racist too. So you gotta love that. Anyway, let's move on. Little Medhi Hassan update. Apparently Hermes, this guy Hermes who does these street interviews, he had tweeted that Jubilee cut his segment because he called Medhi Hassan Muhammad. But according to this clip, apparently he also told him that he smells like shit. I don't know. I haven't watched it. Let's check it out.
I've been watching some of their follow-ups, which I think is as alarming as the actual exchange. I'm sure you've seen some of the stuff online. You see this one, a guy who's at Chaotic Hermes, he posted a picture of himself, and he said, "I didn't go up during Jubilee because Hassan smelled like shit." Did you see that one? Several other guys have.
I can't reveal what happened in terms of the taping and editing, but that's fundamentally untrue. What he just said there, not just the insult, but what he said about what.
Yeah, because he did go up, but then his segment got caught. So that tweet's obviously just a joke. That's a shit post in the most literal sense. Maybe not the most literal sense, but you get it. He smelled like shit. Get it? Shit post. He smelled like shit. Get it? But like that, yeah, Hermes also tweeted in a different tweet that they cut his segment because he called him Muhammad. So I don't like Medhi Hassan's acting like he's under some kind of fucking non-disclosure agreement. He's going to get sued if he just says like, yeah, the guy came up and he was a dick and then they cut his segment. So he did come up. So that's not even true. But it's like, if you say that, then people can actually put together that it's a joke. But if you don't say that part, and especially if you don't say that Hermes himself tweeted about the fact that they cut his segment, then you can make it seem like he's lying rather than just joking.
Happened at the filming.
Got it.
He was a super racist dude.
So there was racist shit that didn't make the cut.
I can't comment on the.
Oh yeah, you can't comment.
You'd have to ask Jubilee.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna need to smell you. Not that I want to, but as a race scientist. Candace Owens is getting sued by the Macrons. Candace Owens is entering the find out stage of the conspiracy theory career. I predict this will go poorly for her. I don't think this is going to go good for Candace. And I think it's going to cost her actually a lot of money. And I think she's going to deeply regret this whole thing. That's my prediction. Could be wrong. These things can get thrown out of court quite quickly, and you know, anything can happen, but that's my prediction. You know, whenever somebody gets sued, there's always this funny cope that happens where people are like, oh, the discovery, now we're gonna have discovery and it's all gonna come out. Like, haha, fools, you played right into my hands by suing me. You know what I mean? Like so when Mr. Beast threatened to sue me in that tweet and I clipped that, somebody was like, dude, this is a great opportunity. You'll be able to get discovery and prove that the wells don't work. And I'm like, dude, I'd rather not get sued by a billionaire if that's okay with you. Discovery to prove that dude, this is gonna ruin my fucking life, dude. He's a billionaire and I am poor. I can't fight a billionaire in court. And Candace is not poor, but I do think this is gonna really hurt her. That's my prediction. Wow, what will discovery look like? Oh, snap. That means we can get discovery coming from someone who blocked me. Hollow Point. They threw her in the briar patch. Candace wants that camel toe in discovery. Yeah. Discovery should be enlightening. Yeah, I don't think so, guys. I think, like, the meme exists for a reason. In some cases, discovery could be very revealing and could really expose a person or a company or whatever. I don't think this is going to be one of those cases. I think I think she's probably a woman, honestly. Again, I haven't watched all the documentaries and shit, but I just know how convincing people can make that shit and still be wrong. So you telling me that the documentary doesn't really convince me and I don't care enough to watch it, but I'm just saying, I think she's probably a female. You know, people say Laura Loomer is trans and shit. And it really is kind of embarrassing. That whole thing is kind of like, one of my favorite anti-MAGA memes is the one that it's like the based Chad Jack. The Chad Jack is like, you know, Trump is owned by the Jews. He's going to war with Iran or whatever. And then it's like the fat dysgenic MAGA guy is like, I have 400 terabytes of Michelle Obama penis pictures on my hard drive or whatever. That's like such a good meme because it just exposes like how fucking retarded all of that is. Like, why are you even thinking about that? And sometimes those memes can be funny, like the Michelle's a man meme. I have seen funny ones.
Cat Respecter, Thursday's top donor sent $5.
Thank you, Cat Respecter. I'm not saying it can't be funny, but it's not. I don't think it's something you should take seriously. Okay, Homeland Security posted this, and they had done this a while ago with another kind of similar painting. And I didn't comment on it, but people get really mad. People get really mad when you just simply remind them and you show them like kind of visual proof of how America was built by white people. The continent was settled by white people exclusively. they brought over some African slaves as well, but those weren't settlers, those were slaves. It was settled exclusively by white people. And so they see paintings like this and it really bothers them. The other one wasn't even like this one, you know, they're chasing off the natives and the buffalo. So it's a little bit more understandable why they see this as like a racist post. But the other one, it was just like white people in a covered wagon. I forget what that painting is called, but they were all up in arms about that one too. So it doesn't matter. They just don't like to be reminded whose fucking country they're in. It makes them really uncomfortable. Then what's really funny though is you see like 14 words, H capitalized twice, Groyper occupied government. Look at this. A heritage to be proud of, a homeland worth defending. Heritage and homeland both capitalized. And if you count the words 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 words. And then it goes even deeper because AD is also capitalized, which is not in the right order. It's not in ADHH, but HH is 88 and A is 1. And D is 4 numerically in the alphabet. So the capital letters in this sentence are 1488, although not in the correct order. And post itself is white nationalist propaganda. I mean, it's literally like a famous painting by John Gast. What year was this painting done? It's so funny. So it's a painting from 1872. So literally when this painting was made, everybody was white except for the natives and maybe some slaves. I don't know exactly when they were bringing slaves over. By the way, I have my civics test coming up and Allison grilled me. There's like 100 questions and they tell you the questions, but they only ask you 10 at the test and you have to get 6 out of 10 right. And Allison went through the whole 100 questions with me yesterday, and I probably got about 90 of them right with zero studying or prep. There's only a couple hard ones in there. There's like, what year was the Constitution written? That was one I didn't know. How many congressmen are there? How many seats in I didn't know that one. There's a few I didn't know, but it's pretty easy. One of the questions was like, what is the rule of law? And I was like, it means you have to follow the law. And she's like, yes, that's the correct answer. I was like, holy fuck. They will really give anyone 1727. No, it's 11 years. I have a trick to remember it now because it's 11 years after the Declaration of Independence, which is, we all know that one is 1776. I did get that one. So the Constitution was written in 1788. When was the Constitution? 1787. Oh, yeah, it is 11 years. I just can't do math. I just can't add 11 to a number. Mensa, by the way. Fucking hell. I kept cracking Allison up because the questions would be like, when you become an American citizen, what duties do you agree to? And I would just be like, loyalty to Israel or whatever. Imagine going to the actual interview and answering questions like that. Like one of them was like, what was the movement for racial equality? And I go, the civil rights movement. Imagine doing that at the actual interview. Civil rights. Spit on the ground. Anyway. Yeah, white nationalist. I don't know if you guys know this, but America is a white nation. That's what you see when you look at this painting from fucking 200 years ago. You're like, whoa, this is white nationalist propaganda. It's not propaganda. It's a white nation. You're in a white nation, geniuses. Hey, geniuses, you are in a white nation. For folks who missed that day in middle school, this painting is a very famous personification of white Anglo-Saxon America floating westward, stringing telegraph wires while trained settlers and miners follow, and the symbolic darkness, bison, and native people are literally pushed off the canvas. The painting celebrates white territorial expansion and the displacement
Gabber
of
sent
indigenous
$20.
people.
Mr. Bing Bong sent $3. Sorry, LP America is full. We're sending you back to the maple
Please,
syrup plantation.
Please, no. Please, no. I'm not like these Mexicans who wave the Mexican flag. Canada sucks. I don't understand why. I mean, I do kind of get it. Why? I was talking about this with my family, talking like the Canadians were like super, super fucking angry that Trump joked about making him the 51st state. And I don't get it, but I do kind of get it, because when you grow up in Canada, Canadians have a real superiority complex towards Canadians really look down on Americans. They don't want you to know this because they like to play the like we're so polite and nice. They're not nice. Americans are way fucking nicer. Americans are way more hospitable and friendly than Canadians. That's a fact. Only thing I don't like about Americans is they don't fucking signal. They don't use their turn signal when they're driving. That's the only thing about Americans I don't like. Okay? Canadians use the turn signal. Americans don't, generally speaking. And it's like, why don't you use the fucking turn signal? It's the rules of the road. It exists for a reason. It's so we all know what you're doing. Use the fuck. But anyway, Americans are very nice. Canadians are fake nice. Canadians look down on Americans, think they're better than you, think they're smarter than you, think they're more civilized, more moral. And so they have like this weird sense of pride from that. When I was like a kid growing up, people would be like, if you ever go backpacking in Europe, make sure to put a Canadian flag patch on your backpack so everybody knows you're Canadian, because you'll get treated way better, because everybody in Europe loves Canada and hates Americans. And I think that there must have been some truth to that back in the fucking 80s and early 90s. I don't think it's true anymore. But when you grow up hearing that, you understand why you end up having like a superiority complex. Anyway, yeah, a totally misplaced superiority complex. It's like black people thinking they're superior to whites is basically like a 1-to-1 analogy for Canadians thinking they're better than Americans. Anyway. Libs of TikTok says, deal maker in chief, Donald Trump. I'm pleased to announce that the Trump administration has reached a historic agreement with Columbia University. Columbia has agreed to pay a penalty of $200 million to the United States government for violating federal law, in addition to over $20 million to their Jewish employees who were unlawfully targeted and harassed. Jewish employees of Columbia University get $20 million. How many Jewish employees are at Columbia? $200 million to settle anti-Semitism claims. I don't know if we can get a number, but that's fucking crazy. White people and Asians are Jews rock. White people and Asians are the ones who have been systematically discriminated against by the admissions process, but Jews who work at Columbia are getting $20 million because people on campus were saying free Palestine. Wow. Sorry you had to go through that, bro. Literally a bunch of like the smartest and most competent and most promising whites and Asians were rejected from the best schools. But I'm sorry you had to hear people say free Palestine. Here's $20 million. Columbia has also committed to ending their ridiculous DEI policies, admitting students based only on merit and protecting the civil liberties of their students. On civil liberties like the right to protest, the right to assemble and have free speech, those civil liberties. And also, the Supreme Court already ruled that you can't do affirmative action admissions based on race. So what do you mean they've agreed to this? Oh, they've agreed to follow the law? Boy, that's awfully fucking sporting of them. I didn't know the law was a suggestion, but it's cool they've agreed they're going to follow it, and they're not. Spoiler alert, they're not, because the law is already in place. The ruling from the Supreme Court saying that it's illegal to do that has been in place for almost 2 years now. And they don't, the first year of Harvard admissions after the Supreme Court said you cannot admit based on race, the student body that year was 14% black at Harvard. So it turns out when you use a merit-based system, blacks are overrepresented at elite intellectual institutions. Mind you, at Mensa, which is a true merit-based system because it's all based on taking the test and passing the test and literally nothing else whatsoever. At Mensa, it's like 2% black in America. But at Harvard, it's 14% black. So I guess black people just aren't interested in joining Mensa. They're too busy going to Harvard and curing cancer or whatever. And then on top of that, we had these leaks, the leaks from the hack, the Niggy hack, and then again another hack recently from Columbia. I think the first one was NYU and Columbia, and again showing it's not speculation. They are still discriminating on race despite it being ruled illegal by the Supreme Court of the United States of America. So it's, and then I saw this comment from Robert Sepper here. Getting American universities to agree to end DEI policies and admit only on merit is shocking, given that 100% of the faculty are hardcore militant Marxists whose sole mission in life is anti-white racism, communist indoctrination, and the woke falsification of history. Big win. It's not a win. I don't know if he's being sarcastic or what. Does he actually think they're going to do it just because they said they would? Obviously, they're fucking not. Obviously, they're just trying to settle this suit and move on with their normal program of hating white people. Also, interesting how it's like, there's all these Jewish employees in the faculty that we need to give $20 million, but also the faculty is anti-white Marxists. Probably a coincidence. Probably a coincidence. Wait, what's happening here? Where's the... Oh, there it is. Speaking of Jews, I love Jews. It's time to start suing for defamation major influencers engaged in anti-Semitism since they're monetizing Jew hatred. Let's take away their money for anything false, public, made with actual malice, and causing reputational harm. Time to play hardball. Yeah, sorry, buddy. That's not how defamation works. You can't defame a race And even if you could, this wouldn't be, because it's true. Hey, Jews run the porn industry and have massive undue influence in the American government and dual loyalty. A lot of these American Jews, so-called Americans. I'm suing you. Like to see discovery in that case. Am I right? Let's. Oh, you're suing me? Let's go to discovery. Give me every email ever written by a Jew. Your Honor, I'm being sued for defaming the Jewish race. I'm going to need every email ever sent by a Jew. North Korea has implemented death penalty for promoting Zionism and has declared Israel an illegal state. 4 million impressions. I tried to Google this. I couldn't actually corroborate it. So I'm a little bit skeptical that they kill you for Zionism in North Korea. But it's a nice thought. And Conor McGregor has officially thrown his hat in the ring to become premier of, what do they do? Is it a president? What is it? Premier, probably. Presidential election, according to Polymarket. Does Ireland have a president? The president of Ireland is the head of state. Okay, they have a president. Conor McGregor currently at 3% on Polymarket. Chance to win with almost half of the volume betting on him. With Mayreed McGuinness in top place with a 34% chance to win. I would vote for Conor before I voted for any Floyd. That's just me. Conor McGregor loves Jews. Yeah, that was so the first guy was like, "Hey Grok, tell me about all the sexual assault allegations." Who is this guy? Man with a sign. MAGA are so stupid. And then here's I don't know what Conor McGregor with Ben Shapiro calling Hamas a terrorist organization, and then an AI generated. I mean, honestly, this isn't that bad. This isn't that damning. He took a picture with Ben Shapiro and he called Hamas a terrorist organization. What is this thing? Like, it's not great, but I've seen a lot worse. Anyway, he's not gonna win. What the fuck is this video? What am I supposed to take away from this? What am I watching?
I got your face. I got your name. Somebody.
Wow. Conor McGregor will never recover from that. Conor McGregor calls for full support for Israel. He is the leader Ireland needs. Hold on. So he has one tweet where he says the word Israel and it's sports related. I'm not saying he didn't call for guys. I'm not saying he didn't call for support for Israel, but he didn't do it on Twitter, from what I can see. Anyway, A Jewish woman tells her husband at a Jewish school she was taught one Jewish life is worth thousands of Arab lives and that Arabs are cockroaches to be crushed. Her husband then posts a comment saying what she was taught. UK radio host James O'Brien reads that comment on the air. Next, the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Let's just take a second to marinate with that one. The Board of Deputies of British Jews. Imagine what white people could do if we just had interest groups. If we were not the only race to not have interest groups. Anyway, the Board of Deputies of British Jews and the ADL go apoplectic and demand he be fired. Never do they mention what he actually said or that he was reading what someone else said. Never do they address what the Jewish woman was taught. Board of Deputies of British Jews. LBC should apologize and take this guy off air from the VP. We are urgently seeking a meeting with senior executives following the completely unacceptable and highly offensive comments made by James O'Brien on his LBC show today. Broadcasting such a transparent falsehood and demonizing the British Jewish community, spreading anti-Semitic libels on a major media platform cannot go without consequences.
I'm fascinated by objectivity, which is why I'm going to read out this from Chris. I do think it's worth saying that these warped views are not just an Israeli problem. My wife was brought up Jewish, and at Shabbat school in a leafy Hertfordshire town, she was taught that one Jewish life is worth thousands of Arab lives, and that Arabs are...
So this is in the UK. She was brought up this way in the UK.
Cockroaches to be crushed, whilst young children are being taught such hatred and dehumanization, undoubtedly on both sides, as Chris points out.
True, by the way, they are. They're both kind of, you see some of these videos, the way they talk about each other, Jews and Muslims, and the word dehumanizing is quite accurate.
Then they will always be able to justify death and cruelty, and it does.
And not just like, you know, like, look, there's racist white people who dehumanize other races, but you see a lot of videos of like them teaching this to like young children, like teaching like young children, like these people are animals, they're pigs, they're beneath us, which is a little bit weird. Maybe white people should be doing more of that, but you don't see that a lot these days from white people. There's maybe a couple little weird examples from like those old Murray Povich clips or whatever, but generally speaking, you don't see that a lot.
Indeed start young, but there is a danger perhaps that we only ever hear one side of the dehumanization and propaganda processes.
They want him fired for that, taken off air. A Jewish school. Here we go. Oh, here we go. I've seen this clip before, actually. I know this one. And this isn't even the one I was thinking of, but I have seen this one. There will be Arabs and they will all be slaves.
אני אומרת לכם ירושלים, מה עובר לכם בראש? מה זה ירושלים? בית המקדש. מי מאמין שבית המקדש ייבנה בשנים הקרובות? מה יש שם עכשיו על בית המקדש? אז מה יקרה עם המסגד? ישבר? אם מכן פגש בשנה האחרונה...
Who among you have met an Arabic kid in the last year?
ילד ערבי.
איפה פגשת ילד ערבי? ליד הכותל.
דיברת איתו?
לא, הוא דחף אותי, אבל לא...
ומה קורה כשאתם רואים ילד ערבי? מה אתם מרגישים?
What do you feel when you meet Arabic kids?
זעם?
I want to kill them. These are like sixth graders, they look like, roughly. Like these are like 12-year-olds, maybe.
מה קורה כשאתם פוגשים ילד חילוני? למה אתה מרחם עליו כשאתם ילד חילוני? מה הוא מפסיד?
הוא לא הולך לדרך על כל העם.
כשאתם חושבים על ירושלים בעוד 10 שנים, כולם חרדים?
לא כולם ערבים, חלק חרדים.
There will be Arabs, but they will be slaves. That comes from the kid.
תהיה משיח, הבנתי. כן, מה אתה אומר?
All Arabs will die. All Arabs will die, and part of them will be our slaves. Not Not the math Olympian of the group, I'm guessing. All right, anyway, there's multiple clips like that you can pull up. And again, yeah, there's weird people out there in all races, but that's like a fucking school, man. And they're like, we're gonna kill. I want to kill the kids. Like, I want to kill Arabs, and none of the adults are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, man. Bit extreme. That's a bit much. But, you know, this guy should be taken off the air for talking about it. And he's an anti-Semite. And a libel, right? Never happened. Will Stancil, Grok's favorite rape victim, says, the other uptown gym is closing. I swear to God, it's like Minneapolis has abandoned my entire neighborhood. His gym is closing down. And then Kafefi Anon posts, the club's former spot sold to a new owner who intends to turn the property into a concept called Halal Square. And of course, this is Minneapolis, where all the Muslims are. This is little Mogadishu now, this state. Minneapolis isn't it? What is the state? Wait a minute. Fuck, I'm retarded. They're never going to give me citizenship, man. Minneapolis is a city in I know this one, guys. Minnesota. Fuck. I'm not good with the geography, okay? I bet I know Canadian geography better than you guys. Shut up. Fuck you. Anyway, it's little Mogadishu. And so you have a Somali about to be mayor of the city, and your gyms are gonna be kebab shops. Will should actually be happy about that. He loves the food. He loves diversity because he loves the food. But also, we're gonna need all your tax money. These brown socialist politicians are going to do a good job, I'm sure, of running the cities. Same with New York. I'm sure these guys are going to do a really good job. Will Stancil radicalized when? How long? How much bad shit do you think would have to happen in this guy's life before he took a step back and was like, you know, I don't know about all this diversity shit. A Stancil sounder, it's just mechanical noises and a man screaming for mercy. That's a pretty good idea. I don't know if Will Stancil is newsworthy enough to spend the time on that, though. Don't talk about him a lot, typically. The BBC has created a black woman's guide to workplace microaggressions.
Loaf sent $3. I live in South Minneapolis. I'm one of like 5 white guys I've seen at my YMCA. Rest are Muslims. Should be called Yuma.
Yeah, and you know, the Shiloh Hendricks also was in Minneapolis, if I'm not mistaken, and they were all Somali Muslim. Like the kid rooting through her shit at the park was a Muslim kid. The guy filming her is a Muslim. And that's kind of part of the wider context that people who watch videos like that, they think that this is just like some random thing that came out of nowhere. And it's like, no, you imagine.
Mr. Bing Bong sent $3. Hey LP, try this
Living
quiz.
around
Let's
these-
see how you do. Your future in America depends on it. Good luck.
It's geography. No, I can't. I so bad. What did I say yesterday? And my father-in-law, I said, like, isn't Maine next to Virginia? And my father-in-law was there, and he's like, you retard. You fucking idiot. He laughed in my face. I'm not doing it. I suck. Anyway.
Take it away, Amanda.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, come on, it's Sarah's birthday. Let's hear you sing. Sing. Come on, Beyonce.
Happy birthday to you. That was so beautiful.
Get it? They're trying too hard. They're man, it's so exhausting being around white people. They're trying so fucking hard to make me feel welcome and accepted. And they're because I'm black, they think I'm good at singing, but actually I suck at singing. And they're just being way too nice. And it's so, oh God, it's so exhausting being around these fucking white people. I wish they'd all shut the fuck up. You know, this is like government taxpayer funded propaganda. This is what they're doing in the UK. This is what they're spending their time on.
Anyway, who wants some cake?
Yes.
It's not easy being the minority in any situation. But in the workplace, as the only black woman, it can be a very frustrating and stressful.
Yeah, it looks awful. The way they were all being so nice to you, the way they were all tripping over themselves to be extra nice to you. It's funny because it's actually realistic, right? If the white people were being like mean and racist and like excluding her, that would be a lot less believable than this scenario. But the whole problem is like, oh, you're trying too hard, you fucking freaks. And even as so much as this is kind of plausible, it's just like they're just socially awkward people. You can't fix that with a fucking PSA. You can't. Hey, socially awkward person, I made a video to show you how you're being awkward and you're making people uncomfortable. Oh, I guess I'll stop being socially awkward. Like if it was that easy, there wouldn't be so many socially awkward people out there. But it's not the kind of thing you can fix with a video.
Okay, Beyonce. Now let's get information for this cake.
I'm just in the middle of something. I'll be there in a sec.
Oh.
She's actually a massive bitch. The tone, look at the tone she talks with. I'm so tired. Being a black woman is exhausting. Hey, Whitey, I'll be with you in a minute. I'm doing my nails. I'm on my break. Isn't that a meme? That's like a fucking David Santa Carla. Hold on one sec, you guys. On my break. Where's the this one? I'm on my break, okay?
And that, my friend, is an example of a microaggression.
Wow. Sorry you had to endure that. Here's $20 million. You know, there is a place where you could
Mr.
go
Bing Bong sent $3
where you wouldn't
Imagine
be
if
a
blacks were
minority.
pleasant to be around, funny, making banging music and not being rude, antisocial, low IQ retards. Everyone would love them. We'd be like, you know what, let's give them reparations.
Yeah. Funny, making banging music and not being rude, anti-so. Okay. Yeah. I mean, some of them are. Some of them are okay. Introducing waves, camera glasses for creators. But I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
This is it. This is the spot.
I just wanted everybody to know it's not all. In case you didn't know that. It's not literally 100%. It's just like 87%. I don't get why they're all like selfies, but so it's camera glasses, secret camera glasses that you can stream from, and you can see the chat in your glasses too. I love men. Elon, what is this? Elon Musk. I love men. What did they mean by this? Clip and ship it. This was predicted by David Wong in a book he wrote called Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits that I read that came out in 2015. I read it because I had seen the movie John Dies at the End, and I thought it was a funny movie. And then I bought his book, This Book is Full of Spiders, and I thought it was a funny book, which that book is the sequel to John Dies at the End. And I thought it was a good book. And so then I bought his next book, Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits, and I didn't like it. It wasn't funny because it had a bunch of like ham-fisted progressive propaganda, basically satire, but like really bad retard satire from a woke retard progressive mind. So I didn't like it. So I stopped paying attention to him after that. But one thing, and I knew this when I read it, and when I wrote a review on my old blog way back in the day, and I said this, that like his prediction is, it's not like in this world, almost everybody is like wearing streaming glasses all the time. And there's a big network that kind of algorithmically pushes the most interesting streams to the top for people to watch. And then because of this, people are doing like the most insane shit to get attention. And there's people committing murders and stuff like that. So it's a real kind of like dystopian, degraded world. And I thought, this is probably kind of accurate. This is probably kind of where we're headed. I don't know about like the murder, torture porn part necessarily, but just everybody being like streaming and competing for each other's attention. And now we're one step closer to that.
Hey.
Hey. Are you recording me?
Wow. Not only can you be a Twitch star, but you can also get laid. Something that's funny about this is they have pre-orders and you have to put down $99 to reserve your pre-order, but they don't tell you how much it's going to cost. Look at this. What will the full price be given that $99 is only a reservation? We're still figuring this out. Who the fuck would reserve a product and not know and put money down not knowing what they're planning to charge for it? Not me. Okay, interesting trend I've noticed is that the way Indians flex, it's very telling. The way Indians flex on social media is by showing that they can get approval from white people. So yeah, like this tweet's like a great example. He's a 6'7" Indian guy, and no matter where he goes, he grabs attention. Women from all over the world are drawn to his height, charm, and presence. yeah, she looks super fucking drawn and comfortable, and not like this is literally just like some meet and greet type of photo shoot type of shit. Can I get a green lines check on this one? women from all over the world. The 3 women, and they're all white. There was a funny tweet in the reply here. Stop having sex with Indian men. Yeah, the ugly white guy talking to the blonde bombshell, most typical Indian girlfriend there. Where's the funny? This one here. Hearty congratulations to India on finally producing a man who can be around women without provoking disgust or fear. It only took you 2 billion tries on the current population, whatever, how many Indians there are. What is it, like 1.5 billion? And even then, it just looks like it's all these like funny like meet and greet things. And then, oh man, there was... Right, okay, this one here. Meanwhile, India women embarrassing themselves globally. And this is like an Indian, this guy's profile picture. Look at this. Race mixing enthusiast for Zeets. And he's like and his profile pic is an Indian dude with a white girl. A very white looking Indian dude, by the way, by Indian standards. Well, by Indian standards. A light-skinned Indian dude, let's put it that way. With a blonde chick who looks kind of chubby, frankly. But he's posting how Indian women are getting rejected by white guys.
Hi, Mom. I just went surfing with my husband. Bye.
So there's this weird gender war. There's this weird sex war between Indian men and Indian women where they're like, the men are like, we can get white girlfriends and you can't get white boyfriends, so you suck. And it's just like, dude, there's this racial inferiority complex creates this weird dichotomy where it's like all they want is head pats from white people. All they want is a white person to be like, hey man, good job, you're all right. But because it's so rare that we do that, they like literally hate us and want to kill us. So they hate us and want to kill us, but all they want is for us to be like, hey man, you're okay. Indian women are beautiful, sir. Afghani woman started embracing Hinduism. No Zeet comes close. What is a Zeet? What does that even mean? Anyway. Just thought that was kind of interesting. Does anybody know what a Zeet is? Anyway, let's get into the main event here. Conversation with Nick and Aarvoll about the movement. I've been looking forward to this. So a lot of people were kind of mad at me for saying Medhi Hassan won the debate, especially on Twitter, which on Twitter, people don't watch the video. They just react to the title. So the title was Medhi Hassan won. Let's figure out why. And there's like a lot of vitriol. Why are you pushing this? You're spiritually Jewish. One person was like, the grift account finally goes mask off. What? Yeah, you got me. I've been a progressive Muslim this whole time. I've just been hiding my progressive Muslim power level, and then I decided this Jubilee video, it was time to go mask off and be like, hey guys, maybe we should all be progressive Muslims.
On Rumble. Something I thought about recently. Doesn't the 13% does 50% have to be reformulated, considering 13% is 100% of blacks in US? But 100% of them don't commit crimes. Corn Pop the Bad Dude 1 cent $5 on Rumble. So if you remove the old and young, emo, you end up with 3 to 6% doing 50% of violent crimes. Would my assumption be correct?
Yeah. It's like 3% because they're mostly young and they're mostly male. Although black women don't commit no murders, that's for sure. But if you were to isolate it by the actual demographics, it's like men under 25. And so it is like around 3%, and they commit a lot of murder. I didn't, the first one half of the message, I was like, 100% don't commit crime. What the fuck is he talking about? But you are not wrong. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. Yeah, the grifter's gone, Matt. By the way, speaking of me being a grifter, this guy offered me $500 a month to retweet him like twice a week. And I said no. And I don't usually, what is his name? Jacob Lang. Okay. I don't usually brag about all the offers I turn down, but I was kind of like, I did have to think about this one because it's like, this guy, he's a Christian. He's got scripture in his bio. He was in jail for J6. He did years in jail. He did like 4 years in jail for J6. He's running for Senate. He went in hard for Austin Metcalf, which I like. I don't really like that he called Austin's dad and was berating the dad. I thought that was a bit much, even if I sort of agree with the position. I wouldn't do that to a grieving father. But he went hard for Austin Metcalf, which is generally I really appreciate. But I don't know, man. I just don't trust this guy. I don't know. You know what I mean? Somebody said he's Jewish, and he's just too slick. But he offered me $500 a month if I just retweet him like twice a week, and I said no. You know, I turned down a lot of money, and I don't make that much money. You know, but it's just, I try to do what's right. I try. You should actually take the deal. People get so mad at you if they find out that you're taking money to shill shit. You know, I took this deal with Prozis. By the way, Prozis.com, promo code LP. If you guys could go and buy some shit and use promo code LP, I'd appreciate it. But these guys sell products that I actually buy and use myself. So it's like something I fully believe in. But if I tweet that, like I tweeted that last week, and some guy was like, don't you make enough money from your big following? Not really. What is enough? Do you make enough money? How many people do you know that would say they make enough money and they don't need more money? I'm not one of them. Anyway, I'm not taking the deal. It just doesn't feel right. I trust my gut when it comes to stuff like that. But if I was more willing to promote, you know, whatchamacallit, crypto, I'd be making like at least like an extra 20, 30K a year. Easy. No, we'll not even have to do it that much. There's money there. There's money there to be made. Anyway, I'm not trying to blow my own horn, but when you get called a grifter over and over and over again, it's like what? You would turn this down? The person who called me a grifter, they would turn down $500 a month for retweets? Maybe. Anyway, let's watch the video. I'm excited about this video. Oh, and the point I was trying to make, I got kind of sidetracked, but you know, saying Medhi won, it wasn't me trying to like shit on the people there.
$5 on Rumble. 100K a year isn't rich. That's about what I make, and I still can't afford things I want.
Yeah, they basically, I saw something recently on Twitter. I don't know how accurate it was, but it said that like there is no state in America where you can live comfortably.
LP brothers Guatemalan girlfriend sent $3 LP. I am very disappointed with your comments about our trip. I will be reporting you to the USA government for anti-Semitism to stop your citizenship from going
Oh my
through.
God. It's funny, but they live in Guatemala. Okay. She's not trying to live here. So I actually have no problem with her at all. That is funny though. What all I was trying to say is I think we need to start getting serious. You know what I mean? And it's also like watching that debate was kind of a hard pill to swallow for me because all of my debates go that way, where the comment section, everybody is saying I suck. And I've always like held on to this massive cope of like, well, they're all retarded. I'm right. And I'm honest. And my opponent was a weasel and the audience is retarded. And it's like, that's a cope. That's not good enough. We have to win. You know, we have to win. And if we're not winning, we have to figure out why and we have to adjust. So I want to get more serious. And this sounds like a good, serious discussion about what we should be doing strategically to achieve our agenda.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Nick Fuentes today. A little bit late, out of character.
Oh, and I got distracted too, but it was 81,000. They said you can't live comfortably in any state if you make less than 81,000, which that seems a bit high to me, but I agree that 100K isn't that much. I would say we are comfortable, but we're definitely not rich. We're all, it's easy for us to be comfortable too because we're not materialistic, me and Allison. Most of the money I spend is on fitness supplements and a little bit on video games. And then for Allison, it's all like toys and books for the kids and clothes.
For you, Nick. I was expecting you to be prompt and right on time. But yeah, thanks for being with us. Nick obviously is one of the most prominent right-wing commentators, pundits, news broadcasters out there at the moment. Always growing his influence, very strategic mind.
This is Aarvoll's YouTube page. I assume that's what you're asking. Hippity hoppity. It's just called Aarvoll with 2 A's and 2 L's. And they got 90,000 views on this. So pretty good for a little channel. Wonder what would happen if Nick came on the progress report. I don't think it would do this good, honestly. But only one way to find out. Am I right? I'm gonna be bringing back the progress report in September. That's my plan. My plan is like one more month of I'm trying to do this thing where I post 6 clips a week, which is kind of very time consuming in addition to doing all the social media posts. So I want to do like 1 month of that straight through August and then see how that goes and then bring back the progress report in September. That's my plan.
I would say one of the best geopolitical thinkers out there. So yeah, pleasure to be with you, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, great to be with you as well. Thanks for having me.
Definitely, yeah. So we had a little bit of a beef a while ago. I went up to Chicago to pitch some, ideas I had for the future of the right wing. It's obviously a topic I care very much about. I founded this intentional community here for white Americans and have big plans. So I went up and pitched some thoughts to you, Nick, which I'm sure you're getting all the time, like constantly just, hey, Nick.
And speaking of Aarvoll's whole thing and his return to the land, I've been thinking about this a lot the last couple of weeks because he's been in the news more and we talked about it. I donated $20 or whatever it was to the fundraiser. But I've also been kind of like I've been kind of standoffish about I'm not sure about living in a place like this. And, my main reason for that is because there's some really kind of antisocial, maladjusted freaks in this movement. That exists in every movement.
$10. Also, all three of those women with the Indian guy are dressed like a hoe.
I mean, they literally look like fitness influencers, and my impression is that they were doing like a fitness influencer meet and greet where fans could go and take you know what I mean? And so it's like they literally like had to take a picture with people. But anyway, thank you for the $10. You know, there's freaks in every movement, but it's just like you don't know what you're getting into. And something else, the name Return to the Land, and I think they get into this. I think they're going to get into this in the conversation, but it kind of implies like there's like a kind of a Amishness to it. And I've often thought to myself, like the Amish kind of seem like they have shit figured out. But then I was thinking, why would you join something like this when you could just become Amish? And I'm not sure there's a good argument. I'm not sure what the argument is for how this project would be better than just being Amish. Because the Amish is like a religious community that has that as a core part of their identity, which I would assume unites them more. Whereas Aarvoll, they don't have a religious identity. You can be a pagan or a Christian or an atheist as long as you're pro-white. And that just sounds like room for conflict to me. By the way, trumpet in the background. I don't know if Aarvoll's a trumpet player. Maybe I could jam with him someday.
What about this? Should we do this? Is it overneck? And people kind of look to you as a de facto leader. And I think that's totally fair because you've really shown your predictive ability. You've shown that you have a handle on domestic politics and you have a great lay of the land, read of the land. And I guess, you know, you didn't immediately act on my suggestions. I got a little bit...
Looks like a cornet. Well, you'd be wrong. That's a trumpet.
Defensive about that. And so I'll accept my part of that blame. And I think it's good to be able to move forward and get over old beefs. So I appreciate, you know, you wanting to reconcile.
Examples of maladjusted. Well, saying maladjusted antisocial freak has just become like one of my catchphrases at this point. And I think I was more on the antisocial side is what I'm thinking about when I'm worried about. But like to me, maladjusted is like if you don't want children, that's maladjusted. If you hate women, I don't know, really hating any group kind of, but some make less sense than others. Anyway, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But like one easy, obvious example is you don't want children. You don't want a family. I know people get defensive because there's people probably watching who don't want children and don't want a family. They think marriage is for suckers. And I think you're maladjusted. That's what I think. I don't think you know how you're supposed to be living your life. Yes, I am judgmental. Thank you for noticing.
And coming on here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I even when we were in the middle of the beef, I said you're a brilliant guy. I'm a huge fan of your content. Keith Woods actually put me onto your stuff.
I played trumpet. I don't really play anymore, but I studied jazz performance at a university in Nanaimo. It was called Malaspina, and now it's called Vancouver Island University. But I dropped out in my third year. But so I was kind of serious about it. I've been paid. I wasn't like a pro musician in the sense that I ever made a living, but I made kind of a decent amount of money playing music for a young person. But I don't play it. I haven't played in years. I just don't have time. Trumpet's very demanding. It's not something you can do casually. If you want to play trumpet, you have to play minimum like an hour a day. And that's minimum. That's just to like sort of not lose what you have, but you're not really going to improve if you're not doing several hours a day, and it's very loud, so it's annoying to the people around you. It's a hard instrument. Trumpet playing is it's a difficult life path, okay? But I do like, I like to think maybe 15 years from now, when I am rich, 15 years from now, when I've made it as an e-celeb and I am rich, maybe then I'll switch to part-time doing this, and I'll play my trumpet a little bit, and I'll find some band to gig with on the weekends, some like whatever, maybe a ska band, maybe like a rhythm and blues, whatever.
I believe I had seen you around, but he put me onto some of your content about music and IQ.
But if you put a trumpet in my hand right now and asked me to play, it would not sound impressive. It's not something, you can't just not play trumpet for like 10 years and then just pick it up and be like, look at me riff. Doesn't work that way. It's very muscular. Trying to think of like a similar, it's so, I know this is like way off topic. I'm sorry if this is boring, but I don't talk about this much. Your embouchure, which is that's the word for your mouth technique as a trumpet player, your embouchure. And you really have to work these muscles really hard. And by the way, back when I was a trumpet player, women would tell me all the time what an amazing kisser I was and how awesome my lips were. So there's that's a plus side to it. But you lose it very quickly if you don't use it. I'm trying to think of an example, and I can't even think of anything other than other wind instruments that are the same. So I don't know. Anyway.
Some other interesting takes, some of your stuff about Neoplatonism. And so I was always a fan. I watched your videos. And it didn't help. My first instinct is always just to hit back as hard as possible. So I maybe we should have both had a resolve to kind of squash things before we turned it into a major beef. But likewise, I'm glad that we're able to sit down and get together again, because I think what you're doing is important. I think what I'm doing is important. I think that, we should have a full spectrum of different approaches. So I'm a big fan of what you're doing, not just with your content, but also with the intentional community. So I agree. I think, in the course of these things, we have egos, personalities. And by egos, I just mean, we, as big personalities and smart guys, we want things done a certain way. There's always going to be inevitably clashes and, little beefs and things like that. And I think that's fine, actually.
I would say another example of being maladjusted. Sorry, I'm I'm barely listening, but they're kind of doing the normal intro shtick here. Like being miserable. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but also like hating everything. Like if I say I liked Squid Games, or I liked whatever, I liked 28 Years Later, and people are like, or I like Joker 2.
You lose the skill quickly, but you can also gain it back quickly. I'm a tuba player but haven't played in a while. But give me a week of hard practice and I could get almost all of it back.
Absolutely. Thank you for the $10. And yeah, they're between shoving a trumpet in my hand right now and saying, okay, play us a song, and giving me a week where I'm practicing 1 to 3 hours a day, which isn't even that much, but you also can only do it so much when you're not in shape. You have to build up to even being able to do it for like 5 hours a day or whatever. But yes, there would be a world of difference between a week of practice and nothing, for sure. I like Joker 2, and people are like, you watch Goy Slop. That's an example of like being maladjusted, because it's like, it's okay to like things, guys, and you don't.
LP's father sent $3, son. The next time you mention your embouchure on stream, I'm a whoop that ass with 3.5-inch cokes banger.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure embouchure is with an E and not with a. It's like you spelt it way wrong, but thank you. Thank you for the $3, Dad. Anyway, I don't even know what I'm rambling about this for, but you know what I mean? Like, some people are like, it's like they're just constantly trying to prove how they're the most online and based. And so even if they're not being like rude, like overtly rude and insulting, they're still just kind of unpleasant to talk to because they're trying so hard to prove how they're the most based person who ever lived. And that would be another example of a maladjusted kind of person in the movement. The kind of person who gives you shit if you like hip hop. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever, dude. Calm the fuck down.
As long as you ultimately come together. So I'm glad we're able to do that as well.
Right. And I feel the energy of coming together, uniting as a movement. For a long time, like the movement seemed like a misnomer. It was divided factions, but now there's a sense of a common enemy, especially with the collapse of faith in Trump. There is a new realization
Some nogs are okay.
We collectively have to organize something to replace MAGA, and you've been live to that fact for a long time now. And so naturally, people are looking to you, and myself, I want to look to what you see for the next 10, 20 years. We might not agree on all points in this discussion, but I definitely want to stay open to, different paths. Like you said, we don't all have to do one thing, but even if we're specializing in different areas, we can still find ways of, collaborating as organs within a larger body, and constituting that larger body is really what I'm concerned with. So I've been talking with a lot of new people, different leaders in our scene, and it's really refreshing. And I'm really optimistic. So that being said, where do you see this kind of power vacuum now heading towards in the next year, around the time of the
32
midterms
minutes.
and the next election? Like, where is the right wing going?
Hulk Hogan's racist rant caught on tape. The WWE terminated ties with the legendary pro wrestler after audio of a racist rant from Hogan surfaced. Rumors started swirling early Friday when the National Enquirer released a transcript of Hogan's rant, which was a series of racist comments directed at his daughter's boyfriend. Once confirmed, all of Hulk Hogan's references were deleted from the WWE site, and he was even stripped from the WWE Hall of Fame. WWE later...
It's so fucking crazy the way you get punished just for doing what's right by your own family. Totally tried to delete his life because he wanted to protect his daughter. How did that relationship turn out, by the way? Did anybody ever follow up on that? Or she and the black guy happily married now with 3 kids and a white picket fence?
Well, I would have had a very different take on this even a few.
Tristan Chase sent $20. We blacks blow that horn best when 6 plunges deep on heroin.
Oh shit. A video. At the school I went to, Malaspina, there was this one sax player. He was white, mind you. Everyone was white. There was literally 0 black people in the faculty or the student body at that school. When I was there. The fuck is his name? He's really good. Human Nature. This is like a banger, by the way. This has like one of the best solos ever by Kenny Garrett. If only we could listen to the whole 12 minutes. Oh, I can't remember his name, but he was a heroin junkie and everyone knew it. He was just like a functional heroin junkie. Squeed it, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boo. He bummed a cigarette off me once. Boop, booby doo, boo, doodle doo doo, boop, bap. Zit it, boop, boop, beep, boop, boop, boo. Don't do me that way.
Months ago, because I think this Jeffrey Epstein thing, and obviously this is something we're just talking about this week, so this is just what's right in front of us at the moment. But a few months ago, I would have had a completely different take about where like the GOP is going based on where Trump is at. I would have said that in the next election, everyone in his cabinet's going to be running. They're all going to be going for the primary. JD Vance, Rubio, Kristi Noem, the usual suspects. And I thought that the kind of considerations that would shape the race would all be based on Trump's popularity. J.D. Vance would be considered the heir apparent because he's involved in this administration. He's on the ticket. He's in the White House or the Naval Observatory, actually, in the administration, And
we do have a Discord, and we do have a bunch of channels for different kinds of links. People submit YCSP clips there. There's a channel for sharing music. We have fitness. We have, a small but vibrant community in the Discord, at least last time I checked, which was like weeks ago. No, I'm in there like at least once a week, but I'm not in there very much, which is, Aarvoll looks like a fucking like marble statue from Nazi Germany. What a jawline. I was looking at this morning and I was like, I can never shave. I don't even know what I look like clean shaven at this point because it's been like 15 years. But just looking at Aarvoll, I'm like, I can't ever shave because what if I don't look like him? Maybe I do, guys. We'll never know. Thing about the Discord is it's only for the supporters. So you have to join locals or PayPal if you go to ihypocrite.net, you can see all the options, but I don't just let people in for free. I was thinking today, if I got really big on YouTube, like 1,000 people, let's say, watching on the YouTube stream for the Cope every day, I would probably set it to members only chat. And not show any of the other and have it be all, because I was like, that would solve all of my problems with crashing out on the chat, because the paywall just gets rid of people who are there to antagonize you. And that's why I have it for the Discord. The Discord has a paywall, and I'm keeping it that way. And someday I dream of someday being able to do the same for the live chat. It's important to have dreams, people.
I would think that all these other people in the cabinet, well, they would be kind of trying to run early, and they'd be trying to outflank him because he would be the obvious choice. But now, given what it's kind of thrown a wrench in things, what a failure everything's been in the past 6 months. And so I wouldn't say that it's a foregone conclusion that Trump is going to be politically toxic in 4 years or 3.5 years. But it's a lot more likely than it was maybe 6 months ago after he wins this unbelievable comeback victory landslide against Kamala. You would have thought everybody be racing to be a part of it. Now it seems like everyone's racing away from it. And you see even like Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, they are always criticizing Trump, even now for bombing Iran, which you wouldn't think. You think it'd be the opposite. You think Trump would be criticizing them for this, criticizing it for not releasing the Epstein tapes. And the reason this is relevant, for people that think this is just, talking shop about politics and silly stuff, Trump obviously has shaped the right wing for the past 10 years. He's been the central figure, central organizing force. And, on the one hand, he's sort of brought everybody with him, and he's led this huge Republican political victory. On the other hand, him being in the middle of it has prevented any other challengers. You can't really define what the right wing is.
Do I think No White Guilt is maladjusted? No, I don't. I don't know that much about him, but he strikes me as okay. He's maybe a little bit socially awkward. And I said this, and I said with the Mama JF stuff, I said, like, I could kind of understand how if you were like a paranoid schizophrenic that you would get like really bad vibes off of him. But I almost feel bad for him because there's no reason for me to believe he's a bad guy. It's just, he just has sort of weird vibes. That is probably nothing. It's probably nothing. But no, I wouldn't say he's maladjusted. Not in like an extreme. There's a lot of we're all a little bit fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't even say like Ryan Dawson is maladjusted, but he obviously has problems with working with other people and being kind of full of himself. And, Nick has some narcissism. We all are a little bit fucked up, but Maladjusted to me is just more like you don't know how you're supposed to even be living your life kind of thing.
Because you run up against the hegemon, you run up against the Leviathan of Trump, who dominates the landscape. And, you know, it's been partly a good thing when Trump is pushing on immigration or some good issues, but I think mostly it's been a bad thing.
He has outstanding charges as a correctional officer against him for abuse. Why does that just make him sound more badass to me? Like, I would need to know the details, but I don't hear that and think, ooh, scary guy. I think, yeah, if I was a correctional officer, I'd probably end up abusing a prisoner or two eventually.
Because it prevents us from...
Isn't that just the job? Isn't that, when we think about it, isn't that really just kind of what the job is?
Creating. And in particular... he, I think, has almost ceded his legacy to the worst elements. You know, I would come up against a lot of these Trump supporters and say, I'm a Trump voter, but I'm effectively a white nationalist, and I criticize Israel and this, that, and the other. And all of the Republicans could credibly say, that's not MAGA. MAGA is multiracial. MAGA is pro-Israel. MAGA is pro-gay. And after 10 years, where Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley and others have been so close into the fold, it's like they have a better claim than we do. So you're...
By the way, one of the stories I didn't go over today that I left for tomorrow is there's this like reporter from The Hill who just left his wife of 9 years to marry like a young Asian man. Libertarianism, dog, not even once. We'll go through that a little bit more tomorrow.
You're going to them and saying, well, spiritually, what's more America first? What's more in line with the Trump victory? But as time has gone on, it's like, okay, but they're at Mar-a-Lago.
Yes, JF is very well adjusted. If you're looking for a role model in life, I struggle to think of somebody better than JF Gariepi, frankly, quite frankly.
They're getting the appointments, the endorsements. They have the access. They define the doctrine. And so, whereas in 2016, Trumpism was against the mainstream establishment right, and you had the alternative right, and it was sort of every vector of attack against the establishment right. And Trump was kind of pushing that along. Now it's having the opposite effect, where it's a moderating force. Everyone is trying to push it forward, and Trump is kind of sitting in the middle saying, you can go no further. This is pro-Israel. Michael Tracy's going to troll you on Twitter and say, oh, you're a MAGA Republican? Well, he's the biggest pro-Israel president ever. And you'd have to deal with that contradiction. So going into 28, with him leaving politics, that's going to be the biggest change that we've seen in this decade. You know, he transformed politics. Obviously,
that is the job if you are a pussy that could only behave like that when you have that kind of power over. Well, first of all, bold of you to assume that I wouldn't abuse people out in the real world too. But also, you really don't think some of those convicts have it coming? You don't think some of them need an attitude adjustment? I've never been a correctional officer, so I don't know. Maybe those convicted felons are all really just a pleasure to be around. But I have a feeling some of them would get on your nerves. Just a hunch.
Lame duck. So to me, that
the camera is tilted. It's like impossible to fix, man, because of my fucking stand. This is what, if you ever saw that clip where Sam Hyde was like talking about how much he hates mic stands, don't even ever get him started on camera stands, dude.
That's sort of the biggest thing on my radar. And before we kind of address that, I don't know, I don't want to ramble too much. Do you have anything to say about kind of where we are in this moment?
Well, yeah, I do agree that Trump, for the time being, is a retarding force on the right. And it is disappointing because I was there in 2016 and I was excited about Trump. I watched The Apprentice before he ran. Like immediately before he ran, I was watching a marathon of Apprentice episodes.
So true,
so,
Ahmad.
I got very into that energy and I supported him, you know, around the time that you did up until 2018, 2019. And then I was kind of disappointed. I voted for him in the last 2 elections anyway. I don't think that his political utility is totally used up, though. I think as far as direction and setting a new
Problem-
agenda, we can't look to Trump at
If I try to fuck with the camera too much, it's just going to end up totally coming off. Yeah, it's just, I'm sorry, guys. This is it. This is what you get. You're making me feel self-conscious now, though.
big picture level. But he has appointed a lot of conservative judges. He still will kind of set the tone in a conservative direction, which is good for people.
Let's
like
pretend
me
it's an
who,
artistic
like, I
choice.
might end up being sued for this community. Our case might go to the Supreme Court. So to have Trump there as this figurehead of an old conservative backlash that now is running out of steam, there's still some steam left, though, that can be used for purposes like unraveling some of the Civil Rights Act laws, DEI, affirmative action, Fair Housing Act. I think there's some potential there. I'm just not exactly sure how that's organized at a national scale. My approach is very much bottom up. I do believe we need a top-down organizational approach. I think, infiltrating the Republican Party, influencing elections and things like that, that has value, but it's not my forte. It's not something that I'm particularly good at. What I can do is organize communities of like-minded people and kind of stake out a claim for, this is where we have a right to defend freedom of association. This is where we have a right to white identity politics, which people have kind of played with, but no one has really done that kind of hard line approach saying, like, no, we're having a white community. This is where we're drawing that line in the sand. And by forcing the issue, it's probably going to come to court. And then
Imagine you join the Amish and you go, I imagine there's like a whole process, a whole vetting process you have to go through. And imagine you go through all of it and then they're like, okay, we're shipping you to one of our Georgia, and then you get there and it's like, oh, they're all black. I was just, because I was thinking, like, one aspect of the Amish is they're obviously like all white, but they're not explicitly, and that's, they don't have to deal with Jews being like, hey, you need to let black people in, because they don't exclude black people, and just black people just don't want to join the Amish or any other race for that matter. But I just think how funny that would be if you're just a white guy who's like, that's it, I'm gonna go live the way God intended and that, and you end up with a bunch of black people. No, like a Twilight Zone episode where the surprise twist at the end is they're all black.
that will make it a matter of public discourse, and then will influence things in that way. So I've sort of staked out a position where I will be either a sacrificial lamb or a landmine for the establishment. And that's my approach. But apart from that, like, I do think something new needs to take place in the Republican Party. A new figurehead is needed. You're too young to run for president, unfortunately, and I don't know who else is really out there who can fill those shoes. Are you paying attention to anyone who you think might fill that vacuum?
No, and I don't think there is anybody, honestly. And what makes it so difficult is you sort of have, unfortunately, it seems this big splinter between, you could argue, the more pro-white side, and you could say like the more counter-Semitic or counter-Jewish side, which is really interesting. It's really become a problem in the past few years where, of course, all of the nativist, like immigration restrictionist, white nationalist, white separatist types, you think of guys like Peter Brimelow, Jared Taylor, Scott Greer, the usual suspects. There is like a capital W, capital N, white nationalist movement that has sort of been around for a long time. And these guys have all coalesced around Trump, and in particular seem to be deeply affiliated with this Israeli network. They congregate around the National Conservative Conference, which is Yoram Hazony's outfit, around Paul Gottfried at Chronicles, who, even though he's a paleocon, he was in favor of bombing Iran, and he is Jewish.
I like Greer too, but He's he doesn't do much JQing on the timeline, but I do like him. It's like this, like I like the fuck's his name, John Doyle, which I know the Groypers don't like him. Please don't get mad at me, but it's the same kind of thing. Like I like him, but it's just like there's this whole sort of like conspicuously not really touched upon topic, but whatever, you know.
He hates the Nazis and all this kind of stuff, and very sympathetic to all of these other, you know.
There's people like that. I like Andrew Wilson. You don't hear him ranting about Jews. You know, it is what it is. Not everyone's going to do that. Some people are trying to have real careers out there, though I don't know how well that's working out for Scott Greer, but I do think Scott Greer actually has like really good analysis a lot of the time.
Ethno-nationalist movements in Europe, in particular, like in Hungary or Germany, where they have an extremely strong Zionist element there. And of course, these
Sam Hyde and MDE are part of the Passage Press? What? Really? How did you draw that conclusion?
guys are now the ones that are saying Stephen Miller's the Hebrew Hammer, and if you're anti-Israel, you're a third worldist, and all this kind of stuff. On the other side, you have a lot of people that are being very critical of Jewish power and Israel, which is a big part of our predicament, but they are embracing, and I wish this wasn't the case. I wish this was pure slander, but it does seem to be true.
Passage Press is Lomez, aka John Keeperman, who I like, honestly. He's Jewish, but I've never seen that guy say anything that made me go, what the fuck? In fact, he's one of the only... They're considered Baptists. They're considered which might not even be fair at this point to call these people Baptists, but that's the association that exists with Passage Press. And there's a lot of those people that I think are okay, but every now and then I see something where I'm like, what the fuck? But not Lomez. Lomez is pretty solid, honestly. And I don't hate what they're doing at Passage Press. There's this thing where it's like people like to say, like, we don't have like arts and culture on the right wing. Nobody's writing books, nobody's making movies, there's no like, I mean, right, political music is kind of shitty, so I wouldn't even like suggest that, but you know, literature, magazines, and they're the only people kind of doing that. Like Raw Nationalist, I have some issues with. I don't like the article from Milo he published in Man's World, but I do think Man's World is like a worthy project. You know what I mean? I do think we need people doing that, and they're the only ones doing it, really. And you can hate them and say they suck and they're Jewish and they're just like, you know, it's all a Jewish psyop. You can say that, but they're like the only ones doing it. I don't know about MDE being associated with them, but I mean, if there was some kind of loose association, I would not hold that against anyone. I really don't hate Passage Press that much. I'm just a little standoffish, if that makes sense. You know, if I got invited to like their fucking gala thing, I would go. Probably. I'm not going to get invited, but I wouldn't be like, fuck this. Like I would go, I would meet people, talk to them. Sovereign House, but I'm, you know, there is criticisms you can make, but we don't need to get into all that.
True. There is some element of third worldism or leftism on the Israel critical side. You have a lot of people where
Charles Carroll went on Red. Yeah, again, big deal. Like I would go. I would never get invited on Red Scare either, but I would probably go if I was invited. I mean, that's such a weird hypothetical because that's less likely. Me getting invited on Red Scares.
$20. Been a while since we've seen a German Shepherd on a bridge in the South. Now it's fat white women's turn to feel the hot breath of law and order.
What is going on? What is happening?
Record!
They're trying to stop the person from jumping. What is going on? You guys are getting started on the videos early. You know they're $5 tomorrow, right? You know you get 75% off if you wait a day. But thank you for whatever the fuck that... I don't know what that was, but thank you for the $20. Anyway, it's extremely unlikely that I would ever be invited to the Passage Press gala thing that they do. But that's even... Me going on Red Scare is even less likely. But I don't blame Charles for doing that. It's like it's a good opportunity for him. And those girls seem nice enough. Those two girls. I'm not a fan. Like I've listened to 1 or 2 episodes and I've never thought like, oh, I should listen to this show. This show is good. I don't really feel like it's for me. It just doesn't resonate with me. But they seem like nice enough young ladies.
Race consciousness is not a priority at all. It's not, maybe they're not even ideologically race essentialists or race realists or anything like this. If they are, certainly it's very low in terms of their priorities. And so when you think about 2028 or even the midterms for that matter, you know, my project in the past few cycles is I thought I would identify the more radical members.
Anna is Jewish, isn't? I thought she was Armenian. Pretty sure she's but Armenian Jews are a thing, aren't there? There's like every flavor of Jew. I can't remember what question I was asking Google something about like what kind of Jew was Jesus, or like who is Jesus most genetically related to today? And Google started listing off like 27 different flavors of Jews, and I was like, there's way too many fucking flavors of Jews. Anyway,
members that are running for the House or that are even running for local office for that matter, and try to support them. But what you find is there's almost nobody on a national level or, you know, even in a semi-national level who is kind of with us on both sides of the coin, that's kind of ideologically has it all together. And we don't need to be picky about it, but you kind of just need the basic, like they're going to be taking our own side, so to speak, not in the pocket of Israel. They're going to be, you know, more pro-white than your average boomer, more conservative than your average Heritage Foundation free market guy. And there just isn't anybody like that. And so
you know, it's a sad state of affairs when there's no one you can even suggest as a possible. I mean, Thomas Massey is probably if you're talking about being realistic prospects and also matching those criteria, Thomas Massey is probably as close as it gets. But the idea that Massey would be elected president seems highly dubious. There's just so many other people that would have a much better chance of being elected president, including somebody like Tucker Carlson or even Musk. And I know Musk can't run, but you know, Trump can't have a third term either, but anything's possible when there's a will, there's a way, as they say.
A little bit disappointed because I thought after 10 years of Trump, we would have had during one of these cycles in 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, you get like one.
But I was saying this about the Pine Sap segment too, where it's like, it's kind of sad that you have to live in this theoretical world of someone is coming to save us, but nobody knows who that guy is, but we need him. You know, it's kind of a sad state of affairs. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's sad.
One AOC of the right, who at the minimum could be like a rallying point for our side, you know, who's going to bring attention to the issues and kind of direct the energy and be a bit of a lightning rod, as she has been for like the progressive side, and becomes like a standard bearer. We don't have that. You know, Matt Gaetz, Madison Cawthorn, these people flamed out. Paul Gosar disappeared. The best we have is Marjorie Greene, and I don't think anyone's looking to her to be an intellectual spokeswoman or anything like this. So I'm a little bit... I think we on our side have a lot on the you know, if you want to call it the entryist or infiltrator side, we have a lot of work to do in the next few years to kind of find leadership on a political level who's going to kind of take over. So that's kind of my take on where we are in the next.
Well, the best answer that you can seem to get about Jesus on the genetic question is modern day Palestinians. That's what the study, well, there's at least one study that shows that they were not necessarily that Jesus was mostly genetically, I mean, Jesus was God, so who knows what his genetics would have looked like if you could sample them. But the Israelites of that region of his time, the Levant Israelites genetically are most similar to modern day Palestinians, at least according to one study that was pretty legitimate.
Next couple of years.
So we basically have to start from scratch, it sounds like.
Yes.
Now, what about Elon Musk's potential third party? You have people like Joe Rogan, who is now kind of a soft critic of Israel. It is, you know, a limited hangout. They won't go all the way and question Jewish power in general, but they are critical of the state of Israel, and that's new, you know. Elon Musk is relatively philo-Semitic. I wouldn't say he's aligned with us by and large, but I'm interested in the tech bro oligarchy that has kind of come to dominate the right. And now recently there's been a break, and now there's this kind of rogue power faction that got a taste of political influence, and I think they don't want to give that up. So is there a way that we can even work with that, if not explicitly supporting it? Can we play that momentum towards something else? Like Elon Musk talks about creating smart cities. You know, I'm a big believer not just in white intentional community to preserve our demographics, but also intentional community as a way of organizing in the face of an increasingly complex economic landscape, where just going to college and getting some specialized degree.
That just means they have small genetic heritage from the real Jews. I mean, the way they do it is they find skeletons, archaeological DNA samples from that period, which again, you know, I'm not saying it's accurate. I'm very dubious actually of our ability to date things, because that's been shown to be sketchy. But that's what they do. They find supposedly DNA samples, and then they just compare them to modern populations, and that's where you get the closest match, which isn't really that shocking when they're in the same place. Like, it's like, oh, it turns out they're closest to the people currently living there, not counting the people who just moved there 80 years ago.
Is no guarantee that you're going to get a job. Either because it'll be outsourced to
DNA is fake,
or because AI will be able to do it better. And we're not very good at predicting what AI is going to be like in 5 years. So if you go start a degree, you know, by the time you graduate, it could just be useless. Whereas intentional communities, building our own economic parallel systems, we don't have to wait for opportunities to arise in the mainstream economy. Instead, we kind of take control.
I wonder how big Aarvoll's community is. Like, what is the plan? What is the initial plan? How many people are we talking?
Over creating new ecological niches for ourselves, so to speak.
Because it's hard to imagine it being more than like a few houses, and then it's kind of hard to imagine that really becoming anything noteworthy. Not trying to be pessimistic, but it's like to actually to make a point, you need something that's at least kind of on the level of Urania, right? To make a point, you need to be big enough that people notice you, that they talk about you, and most importantly, like all these Urania vids where they say, fuck, they're doing a pretty good job over there.
Now, I think there's that alignment. Andrew Torba.
Yeah, the Corey Mahler so I'm doing the locals video on that today. Yesterday, I got all my posts scheduled for today. So today I have time to record my locals video, which is going to be me watching and reacting to the Corey Mahler interview, which also has James Lindsay in it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Also talks about creating.
And again, if you join the membership on whether on YouTube or Odyssey or locals, you get access. You'll also get access to those videos, and you're not just paying for the Discord. The Discord is like a bonus. You also get exclusive videos, and you can see all the options at ihypocrite.net.
Creating intentional communities like that. So I'm like spiritually aligned with some of the stuff they're doing. What do you think can be done with that faction?
Well, I think that it's kind of hard to say because they're really not with us ideologically. You know, like Elon and Joe Rogan, they're sort of splitting from Trump. They're less right wing than he is, even on immigration. You know, like I consider them to be almost center left. Elon is not, at least for America, appears to be believes that race matters or that our heritage matters, or he's an immigrant or anything like that.
Austin Power
and same thing with Joe Rogan. Like they are effectively like.
On X?
Yes, I don't know. So I finally, yesterday after the show, I DM'd Mahler and I asked him if he wanted to do it and when would work. And he said that Thursday or Friday is better for him. And then I messaged HT and HT said, I will get back to you. I'll talk to my guys and get back to you, but also it would be better if Mahler isn't there. Like, we don't want to debate you. We just want to have a conversation, and it will be, have Mahler, we don't need Mahler. And I wrote, and I said, no. Hey man, I know the game. Okay. I know what it is. It's let's bring on a Christian. We have a whole fucking team of 300 people looking for the most difficult to defend pieces of scripture, and then we're going to hit you with them, and then you don't know and then we're going to say everybody look at the stupid Christian who doesn't know his own religion. Which, by the way, the Bible is like super fucking complicated. Okay. Yeah. Most Christians aren't equipped to theologically defend the Bible, including me. But so I know the game. That's the game. The game is we're going to make this guy look stupid and show that he can't defend his own religion. But that's, sorry, I'm bringing Mahler, and I'm happy to talk about my own views and my own experiences in that, but you want to get into the scripture? You're going to have to talk to my friend Corey about that, and I'm not doing it otherwise. So I haven't heard back from HT as to when, but maybe hopefully soon. We'll see.
Center left libertarians, the Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, even the tech bro, the Jacob Helberg.
Yeah, I saw Mahler was on 2 weeks ago, but somebody sent me a Rumble video and the audio was unlistenable, so I didn't listen to it.
David Sachs, these types. And I think that if anything, they might even try to hurt us. I think that, especially in December, that whole H-1B debate.
Why is it your religion if you can't defend every single piece of the holy text? Yeah, I'll go into that on I'm not gonna. This is stuff we're gonna cover in the space. But I do have an answer to that, but I'm not going into it now.
Was very telling. When Elon Musk said, if you're against these H-1Bs, we're gonna.
Also, very fucking easy for a neo-pay. Hey. Can I take a look at your holy texts? Can I take a look at your fucking 800-page holy text written in the year 400 BC and take a look if there's anything weird? Oh, I can't because it doesn't fucking exist. Well, that's convenient for you, isn't it? With your little fake religion that has no beliefs and no rules. That's awfully fucking convenient for you, isn't it, pagan man?
take you out root and stem. You're real racist. You are the problem. And I guess I wonder, to the extent that any kind of white nativism gains momentum as Trump maybe crests, I wonder if it draws more attention and then draws more ire from them. If it becomes more, I think about almost like Charlottesville. Charlottesville was kind of like, here is a pro-white movement, and it wasn't the best optics. Obviously, it could have been handled better. But the minute that kind of splashed onto the scene as distinct from Trumpism, everyone took turns beating it down. Everybody said they ran away from it as quickly as possible. And I almost feel like that's going to happen again. I feel like the Jubilee video a couple days ago was almost like a prefiguring of this, where it's like everybody's sort of emboldened. Everybody sort of has this effect where they say,
yeah, that's right. We don't have the original sources, but we do know they sometimes like to engage in ritual human sacrifice, including sacrificing children and virgin women. We do have some record of that part of the religion, so that's real cool. When you guys got your next one of those scheduled?
There's this exuberance of the victory of censorship kind of going away, all these other things. And they start to say, hello, world, we are radical right-wingers. And yeah, we are fascists. And I don't think people like Elon or the general public or the
Well, Christians didn't sacrifice Jesus. That was Jews. And it wasn't a sacrifice. It was just murder.
Or left types, a lot of these people even that voted for Trump, they're not down for that. I don't think there's a big constituency for that. And it's like you said, I think.
Yeah, God did say something like that to Abram, but then he said psych, so it's okay.
I think actually that Trump has more utility than people maybe think, because the second that Trump disappears as a figure, it is, I think, a lot of the right-wing people are going to coalesce and consolidate around someone that is much more left-wing. That is not going to be able to get away with some of these things that Trump was able to get away with because of the power of his personality, the cult of personality. So I think the America Party, if anything, we're going to fall on the side of the Republicans in that dispute. The America Party is going to be technologist or technocratic or both. They're going to be deficit hawks. They're going to be about good governance. They're going to be not engaging in culture war. They're going to strive to avoid anything racial. You know, the party was founded by 2 Indians. They're on the paperwork or whatever. Whereas the Republican Party, I think that is going to actually go on as the center of any kind of culturally right-wing element. So we might be counting, but I think it's a good thing to have a split. I sort of welcome the America Party because, like you say about smart cities pointing towards intentional communities, kind of like as a concept, in the same way, a viable third party that has a big backer and big money, maybe that points towards the breakup.
Viable is very optimistic. We're already calling it viable. I don't know about that. I'm not even sure Elon hasn't already given up on it, but I guess we'll see.
This like 2-party, and I hate when people say 2-party system, but maybe it points towards there could be some innovation on that side. There could be a more right-wing party and a more left right-wing party or a more center right-wing party. I don't think that's the worst thing for us. Overall, I don't think the America Party is going to be a home for white racialists. Or
Chuck Mangione died. That's why somebody at the start of the chat said, like, play Chuck Mangione as however you say it, Mangione, as the outro, and I was like, that's a deep cut pull. That's a weird suggestion, but okay. Well, rip. The legends are dropping.
You know, white people to want a homeland, but it may shake up politics enough where we could get something different, at least, you know, because the options aren't working.
Well, you can leverage the ascendancy of the one against the other and make demands that otherwise, if there was just a unified right wing, you could not make. I think the key demands that are actually achievable are rolling back affirmative action, rolling back the Fair Housing Act, some civil rights laws. I don't know how realistic from a legal perspective it is. I've talked with lawyers who say basically the Civil Rights Act is like a second constitution. It's so deeply embedded in the way our legal system works. However, if we can mobilize,
and not just the legal system, but the morality of the country, you know, that's that's all wrapped up in what they call the post-war consensus now. That when people say post-war consensus, they don't just mean like the Holocaust happened. They mean racial equality is a virtue. And if you even speak against that, you are evil. So good luck getting those laws changed anytime soon.
It's a radical new kind of grassroots coalition that can be used as a bargaining chip.
Tonica and $3 Christianity. Have you contemplated yoga, meditation, and cell phone games? You are a joke.
Oh shit. Yeah, there's a German guy who called in basically saying exactly that. I mean, he wasn't actually promoting cell phone games, but he was giving me a lot of shit about playing video games and then admitted that he was like addicted to some mobile game. This is the this is what I'm going to be reacting to, recording for the locals later today. Racist, anti-Semitic, Hitler-loving podcaster. Can't believe they called him a podcaster. That's so insulting. I did see that Handsome Truth clip, and in fact, I don't know if I plan to do any, but I did save it.
Kill you, each and every one of you. You fucking scum pieces of shit. You treasonous Christ cucks.
He's talking
all
about
of you motherfuckers.
Killing all Christians.
Hunt you down. You will be put on TV and fucking killed. Pieces of shit. You degenerate pieces of fucking shit. You fucking scum.
They love calling Christians degenerate. I've noticed that, which is like, really? Really? I'm not even going to go into it, but it's just another one. I've noticed that. That's a trend. They're like Christians are degenerate. Really? Compared to who?
Bags that fucking race trade for a fucking rabbi. It will fucking hunt you down, you motherfuckers. Mark my words. You better fucking kill me.
Anyway, look, I like HT. I don't know the full context. That is some extreme rhetoric, but that's also part of the game when you're a streamer. But it seems like he is in a dark place, and that's where you end up without Christ. And I have no intention of going to that kind of place myself. I actually like being happy and joy. I'm gay. I'm gay in the traditional biblical sense. So I don't know how serious he's being there. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he seems like a good guy to me. I don't know if that sounds weird, but I think he's a good guy. I just think he's in a kind of a weird, dark place right now, and I haven't given up on him. But I do assume that after I do this space, that I'll basically be done with these people. I think this is basically like a breakup talk with like maybe, when you go to have the breakup talk with your girlfriend and there's like a 6% chance that maybe you'll actually save the relationship. That's how I view this space. This is like, I owe it to them to show up and have the conversation. But people who like are obsessed with just hating my religion, I don't have time for that. It's like, imagine if instead of hating Jesus, they were like weird vegans who thought that the reason white people are race cucks is because they eat meat, and they thought that eating meat was like a Jewish conspiracy, and they called you like a meat cuck. Oh, these fucking meat cucks! I can't. That's about as serious to me, frankly. I don't want to be insulting, but it's like it's a novelty, and it's kind of a waste of time because I'm not giving up my religion. So if that's your only thing you care about, I can't see us really having much to do with each other. But I do feel like I owe it to HT to go talk to him.
against the Republicans and the America Party, then we could maybe get them to back some radical new agendas that otherwise just wouldn't be possible, like explicitly challenging the Civil Rights Act. We had that, was it a Supreme Court ruling about affirmative action a few months ago? So it's not impossible. I think going against mass immigration, H-1Bs, is not as likely to gain traction just because you're arguing directly against their perceived interest. Elon Musk needs H-1Bs, or in his mind he does, right? Whether that's the case is another matter, but I tend to think along the lines of what battles are actually winnable and where can you find some common cause with these people. So the tech bros, like Musk fired all these women and various minorities at X when he took over, and I'm sure he would like more freedom to do that and freedom to hire whom he wanted. So that I think there's some room for working with that faction on that front, and then you can maybe play the immigration side more with the typical Republican base. So what do you think about that? And then maybe we can get into,
I find this conversation so far kind of boring because it's very politics focused. And I think you guys sort of agree because we're all distracted in the chat and we're talking about pagans and, jazz music and shit and whatever. It's just, like Aarvoll said earlier on in the conversation, I don't feel like I can influence politics. Me sitting around thinking about how I'm going to use Elon Musk and Sam Altman to my advantage seems a little bit detached. It seems a little bit optimistic, a little bit overly optimistic. Like, how can I leverage the tech bros to get what I want? The tech bros do not care about me or you. Okay. So it's not that interesting, but hopefully they get into some more tangible, down to earth things to talk about than how we're going to get Trump to do what we want or whatever.
How do we organize a not just a voting bloc, but a political bloc, a real active political bloc that can leverage this split?
Well, I think you're totally right about that. And I think that, in order for us to achieve our political objective,
there is, I don't know what Nick is going to say, but there is, the problem is there is no white nationalist political bloc. That doesn't exist. You know what I mean? You have like the plumbers union is more, politicians are more worried about the plumbers union. I don't know if that's even a thing, but that's the joke. Than they are, I guess trade unions are, I don't know if they have their individual, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? They're more worried about like the Muslim vote. I mean, especially but whatever, like than they are about the white nationalist vote. But in order to make that happen, you just kind of need white racial consciousness. And this is what I've been saying for several years is like, that fixes everything. If you can get white people to think as a team, to play as a team, pretty much all of the problems are downstream from that, pretty much.
This is something that Nate Fisher wrote. He's pretty smart. I follow him on Twitter. And he said this recently, which kind of spoke to me. He said that, and this is me talking, but it's his idea. When we talk about our goals, voting bloc, and we want our own land and things like that, it almost presupposes that there is a we, that there is an organized we that is capable of acting collectively for the purpose of large projects. And I think that, almost talking about, and obviously you and I are both starting somewhere. We're both starting something, and you're doing the intentional community. I'm doing a show and have this political thing going on.
Building pro-white skyscrapers. Holy shit. I mean, hey man, you got to think big. You know what I mean? A lot of Elon Musk's projects sound silly. And then 3 years later, you're like, oh, he actually built tunnels all under LA or whatever,
But I think that it almost puts the cart before
Yeah, he's Elon Musk, though. I mean, it helps if you're the richest man alive.
for the horse. We almost need to work on building the movement first, in the sense of, for us to compete on any level with any of these groups, it does require money. It does require a sort of professional network. It does require sinecure jobs and positions, because people, if you think about, we want people to be working in this forever. Well, people need jobs and homes to support their families. They need community. Without kind of a much larger movement, without almost like an economy of scale. You see what happened like with Jubilee the other day, like that Pine Sap guy. He goes on the show. He says, yeah, I'm a fascist and I disagree with you. And boom, fired from his job. And like, unfortunately, this is the story basically of our movement for the entire time, which is you want to scale it up. You want to act collectively, but people participated.
Catholic versus, yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of any like movement infighting. If we're all pro-white, we should put whatever other petty differences, maybe they don't, I know some people take sectarianism really seriously. To me, it seems kind of petty, but I'm just not, maybe I'm not as pious as the next guy. But all that shit should be put aside. we can settle that out. We can fight those battles between us after we win.
Participate in it, and then they lose their.
And if people who are too like divisive and antagonistic and aren't willing to put aside relatively minor disagreements, I don't need you to be Christian, but I kind of need you to not be singularly obsessed with hating Jesus. If that's too much to ask, I'm not sure we can work together, because I'm trying to focus on being pro-white and you're trying to convert me, and it just doesn't sound like a good formula.
Jobs. Or there's maybe a handful of jobs and there's some money, but it's not a lot of money and you're kind of trapped in it forever. If you go to work for Racist Incorporated, you're never going to have a normal job ever again. You're going to make
secular racist nationalism is the core foundation. Yes, but again, and this is what Medhi was saying in the Jubilee things, secular does not mean atheist. Secular just means the state doesn't have a religion. And almost none of the founding fathers were atheists. I think maybe one of them was. And they also, I forget who it was, said that like the Constitution only works for a God-fearing, moral people. So don't confuse secular with atheist in that sentence, and then you're fine.
35 grand a year on the generosity of one or two donors forever. And that's not really attractive for the best and brightest. And you need the best and brightest. You think about a similar movement like the Zionists or something else, and you literally have world-class human capital that are attracted to it, and they're attracted to it for religious reason and other things. And it's a little bit of a different situation. But I do think that you almost sort of need something to kind of reach a critical mass before even these things become possible, where you do have enough resources, whether it's enough billionaires, enough millions.
Yeah, the founding fathers were deists. It's funny how people love to say that when talking about the founding fathers, but nobody ever, like in modern, like, what kind of religion are, I'm a deist. Nobody says that. Nobody identifies as a deist anymore. Nobody identifies other people who are alive today as deists, really. I'm sure you can find an example, but you always hear that in the context of the founding fathers' religion. People, they were deists. They were basically Christian. Let's be real. They were basically Christian.
They have these synecured positions at various companies, maybe across the country, where if people get exposed, it gets too hot, they can fall back on. There almost needs to be a critical mass of as a society, for lack of a better word, first, before it even becomes viable to attract talent, to push collectively. And I think that's kind of where we're in the middle of right now, where it seems like our ideas have reached enough of maybe a mass appeal where you can start to bring in large numbers of people or very high elite human capital type people that might be interested in building something from the bottom up. But I think we sort of need to work on building the movement first as a vehicle before we talk about kind of building our dream, city or our dream, whatever. That's sort of been my idea for the past 10 years because
yeah. And it's hard though, because there's so many, people we've been streaming for a decade. Like he said, I've been doing this for 10 years. Nick has been doing this for 10 years. We're coming out every day. We're talking our face off. Where's the fucking movement, man? There's no AFPAC this year. AFPAC was like one of the most real world, tangible, and I'm not trying to put it all on Nick's shoulders and blame him or anything, but it feels bad that didn't happen, because a movement cannot just exist online. And it feels like a step back that we didn't even get AFPAC. Not blaming Nick or anyone for that, but it's like, it's such slow going. Like, I'm just going to stream until there's $1 billion, until there's a white ADL with $1 billion in assets. Be streaming a long fucking time before that happens. Again, not to blackpill or whatever, but it's just, it's hard not to sometimes when you're like, well, all we can do is keep talking like we've been doing for the last 10 years. It really kind of is all we can do. Like, he's not wrong. It's just kind of depressing. We need Elon Musk to get based as we need racist Elon Musk to be like, okay, I'm funding whiteness. Elon Musk needs to be like, I'm putting my money on white.
Saw Trump win, and then of course he got surrounded by the interests. He won the election, but how do you staff the White House? How do I get guys that are going to run the Pentagon for us, that are going to run the various organs of government? Well, I got to go to the neocons. I got to go to the usual suspects. And then they fill up the White House. And you say, well, who's going to write the policy? All the usual think tanks. Who's going to do all the activities of government? Well, it turns out we just have the one guy in the center, and it's going to be everybody else from every other administration is going to be running it inside the government, outside the government. And so I thought in 2017, where are the nonprofits? Where are
we need to save ourselves? Like, yes, but also realistically, going and living in Aarvoll's little white town is probably as close as you're going to get to saving yourself in that way. I mean, the thing is you don't have to. You can still have a good life in America, realistically. Like, you just can't have everything you want. You can't have you can't have your tax dollars paying for roads and hospitals instead of EBT junk food for obese black people. That's just something you're going to have to live with, because like really winning and getting and not having those things is just kind of unattainable. So save yourself. Like, yes, you have to save yourself, but you can't get that. You can't get a white nation that way,
think tanks. Where are the experts on our side that are going to come together? And no one was doing that. And I thought, first, we kind of need to red pill a lot of people.
Elon doesn't, it's true, but Elon's not, like, he's not just some retarded race blind boomer. Okay. I'm not trying to put all my hopes in him or anything, but like Ashley St. Clair said, and I believe this, like, he talks about the birth rates publicly, and he talks about European countries, and he says this is a problem. And then privately to Ashley St. Clair, he said the third world is outbreeding the West, and we need Western birth. Okay, Western, that means white. That's what that means. He's not an idiot. He understands that if you need, for every 10 Africans, you need one white person. to support. For every 10 Africans, you need another white person to support them and to give them the food. So he understands it's untenable because the ratio of Africans to whites is growing to the point where we're just not going to be able to support them anymore. We need more white people so that we can feed Africa, you guys.
So we could start to draw on, even if it's 1% of them, to be the movement. And that's been kind of going slowly and steadily for 10 years. That's kind of where my head is at in terms of what's kind of the immediate outlook, is kind of creating and finding those people and bringing them into a network. And then you have your first Congress, you have your first, Socialist International, your first Zionist International, but for our types, I think that's kind of where we need to go with it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a matter of how you get there from here. And I look to examples like, on the one hand, the Freemasons, which is more an elite approach, and they successfully revolutionized all the governments of Europe, right? They ended the old aristocracies, brought in democracies and rule of the merchant class, and they did that through effectively think tanks, ideological propaganda, controlling media in the form of plays and things like that back then. On the other hand, you have the Muslim Brotherhood, started by a teacher in Egypt who basically created a fraternal society to provide education, healthcare, basic services that the incompetent government could not provide. Similarly, in the case of the madrasas in Pakistan under British rule, they started these religious education centers. They acted as community centers. And I mean, that is part of why they were able to throw the British off ultimately. And their influence extended into Afghanistan and formed the basis of the Mujahideen and the Taliban. And the Taliban defeated us, ultimately. So I think there's something.
Imagine if you could just like look forward, fast forward like 50 years, and Patriot Front is like this massive, huge like lobby organization, like bigger than the Muslim Brotherhood. You got to start somewhere,
To these two approaches, that it can be done simultaneously, but on the one hand, you can build a movement by providing for people directly what the government cannot. And intentional communities are a natural way of doing that. Also, community centers, schools, think tanks, and you don't necessarily need millionaires or billionaires.
Patriot Front is really kind of the closest to what he's currently describing.
To support you in doing that. Like, we crowdfunded this land here for our first community, and we're getting large numbers of relatively, middle class, ordinary people together to organize land buys in other parts of the country. I'd like to extend that.
I would love to hear how many people are going to be living on this land in the next 2 years.
To community centers in more urban areas. What we lack really is spaces where we can congregate productively and where we can spend our time productively. So that's more the bottom-up side of it. On the Freemasonic side, I think we do need an openness to discourse among all of our leaders. Just that's an attitude issue. We've, like you and I, had a beef and we weren't communicating for a little while there. And I just see it happen way too often. And it sort of just has to be an axiom in our sphere that we all show up for that Congress of ideas. I don't know how to enforce that other than by example and saying we're not going to tolerate so-called leaders in our movement who won't.
Yeah, the Groypers don't like Patriot Front for some reason. I don't know why. I never really got the origin of that.
Don't speak to each other, because here you have.
Did what's his face say something about that? If you want Nick to not like you, say one negative thing about him is usually a good way. But I don't know that Russo actually said anything.
Different figures.
Pretty sure I heard Russo actually speak respectfully. But I don't know.
Hundreds, thousands of people supporting them, putting their hopes in them. And then we have another guy over here who they agree on 99% of the issues, but the two leaders won't actually meet up and discuss. The Masons were really good at that. So I think that's the key to unlocking that top-down elite human capital.
He put out a fatwa.
Organizing structure, and then the bottom-up stuff, like that's what I'm more interested in, and that's relatively easy. It's just you have to get out there and physically organize it. I also think those physical spaces can be used for both purposes. So once we secure these community centers, camps, schools, recreational lands, then conferences won't be so occasional. They won't involve traveling across the country.
Fed coded is a weird way to like, that's a weird reason to not like them. I really don't think their optics are that bad. Like, they wear masks and people really don't like that. And it would be better if they didn't, but it's like, this is why I said, like, that's the closest thing we have to anything like a Freemason. And the Freemasons were also secretive. Like, they didn't go around announcing publicly that they were Freemasons. That's part of the thing.
Every time.
Corey and Woe hate the Freemasons. So they think it's like they call it Freemasonry Judaism for white people, and they hate it. I don't know that much about it, but they really don't like it. I picked that up from listening to Stone Choir.
There will be things going on in your area you can go and contribute to directly, including think tanks and things of that nature. This is a random funny story, but I once lived in a abandoned not abandoned, but like it was a old Freemason temple where I grew up in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. And my friend, the same guy who I used to drink with and listen to Black Sabbath, he bought it. It was like sitting there abandoned, and he bought this building, this old, and then I was his roommate, and I'd be sitting there writing code, doing like Flash projects, action script projects, and listening to Alex Jones, because this was like 2004, 2003, 2000. This was like my conspiracy theory era. I was living in an old Freemason temple in my conspiracy theory era, and he was like turning it into like a sound studio. And we dubbed it the Sonic Temple. And we had like parties there where we would have a band and play music. And that was actually, when you think about it, that's kind of a cool name, the Sonic Temple. I remember making flyers, be like, party at the Sonic Temple. Sure. So that's kind of the vision that I'm looking at now for realizing.
We had a really big Halloween party. It was fucking sweet now that I think about it. I remember that.
The problem, I think, with the only issue with that, and we've discussed this before, it's kind of funny, we talked about it when you came up here, is like, I think that we have to give due consideration to the fact that our enemies are trying to thwart us so intensely all the time. And I know you've considered that. It's happened to you recently where, Reddit found out about the whites only community, and they said, how can we get this shut down?
Nick talking about, holy fuck, it's 12:30 already. Way too much rambling on my part today.
Never getting doxxed. Unicorn Riot leaked their entire private server in 2022. 5 years of chats planning crimes across state lines. Tons of maskless photos too, including members committing vandalism.
I know. I heard that, and I kind of said, yeah. I mean, he kind of threw that in at the end there. But he goes, yeah, they never got doxxed and never got charged except for that one time. And it's like, yeah, I don't think any of that's really true. Yeah, I'm not about this, like, we're all going to come together, and now we're all going to embrace Patriot Front. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not signing up for that. That's got nothing to do with me, man. Good luck to you. And it's so weird how they're making demands on me. There's all these people that shit on me. You're not Patriot Front. You don't like Patriot Front. F you. But then they demand I'm going to then go and promote them. We're all going to use your platform and promote our group. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, not a fan of all that. And look, I'm a vet. I'm a vet of Charlottesville. I'm a vet of January 6th. I think it's a horrible idea. Membership list, masked group, doing rallies. There is only one way that can end, and all it's going to take is one bad outing. The thing is about a group like that, everything's good until it's not. Everyone's having a great time until some fucking thing happens at one of their little demonstrations, until somebody opens fire on them, until somebody throws a punch and a guy dies.
Right. This is like, I mean, I get what he's saying. Yeah, things can go wrong, but this is very reminiscent of BAP talking about why he doesn't like AFPAC way back in the day when kind of their big split originally happened. Fuck, I think I might have missed the lunch window, you guys. It looks like Allison is working out. So, I mean, I guess I don't get to eat either way. So, anyway, BAP was like, "Oh, Fuentes is doing IRL meetups, and that's you're gonna ruin your life doing an IRL meetup." And it's like, what is the difference between the difference between AFPAC and Patriot Front is there's no members list, but there is a list of people who bought tickets. Like there is a paper trail, an electronic paper trail. I don't know. This isn't very convincing so far.
Until, there's a ton of different things that can happen. And some people might say, well, there's risk involved in anything. Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should go join Patriot Front necessarily. Like you shouldn't do that unless you are willing for shit to go south. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying, oh, Nick's crazy, nothing can go wrong here. No, things definitely can. And you shouldn't sign up for something like that if you're not willing to pay the price.
But that's an unnecessary risk. Getting everybody RICO'd, getting everybody in that kind of criminal and civil liability, it's a huge risk, and it's not worth it to do parades. And I've said this before.
What do we win by route? Well, this is the thing, and Russo has addressed all this, and so it's kind of tedious at this point. But Patriot Front does like community outreach shit where they go help with hurricane relief, and they go do like whatever food drives and that kind, and they do rallies, and the rallies get all the media attention, and the community outreach gets like almost no attention. So that's why, according to Russo, that's why they do it.
This is how you know that they're not being forthright. I have said repeatedly, if they want to get together and do a book club, a gym, professional network, a political network, I would support them to the teeth. They say they have all these other activities. We learn American history. We go on hikes. We clean up litter. We do disaster relief. We do book clubs. We do sparring and fighting. And
yeah, I mean, they do disaster relief, because that has been, there's like Daily Mail articles on it and shit. And they put out videos of it too. It just doesn't get that much attention. Like, what is the argument? They're not really going to the gym. They're not really talking about books. Like, I think they probably are. Honestly, I think they probably are doing that stuff.
Work out together and they promote physical fitness. We help each other get jobs. We have camaraderie. That's all great. That's all really great. That sounds like the Boy Scouts or like a fraternal organization.
It is a lot like the Boy Scouts. What's the problem, really?
That's great. Why do you need to go out in masks? Why do you need to buy uniforms and masks and march up and down the street and give speeches about how like blacks and Jews aren't real Americans and all this kind of stuff? Why do you got to do that? What is that inviting other than trouble? You know how many people would welcome? They have a thing like this in Belgium. Dries van Langenhoven had a youth group, and I don't know enough about it. Maybe they do this kind of stuff, but as far as I know, they're not doing masked up parades and uniforms, at least not in the same way. There's a need for a fraternal group. That would be a cool thing. People,
order me some feet. Do you know how much the delivery cost will be, dude? It's 20-minute drive to the nearest pizza place.
They extol the benefits of the organization. Great. Why do we need that element? Why do we need the element of everyone in the group is going to be expected to put on a mask and go and parade around in public?
This kind of ties into what we were talking about yesterday. Like, it's hard, man. How much do you show your power level? How much do you hide it? Right? Nick is saying don't talk about Jews and blacks, as if he doesn't go on his show and talk about Jews and blacks. But I get what he's saying. It's like if you're there, you know, they're a group, and so everybody is kind of at risk for whatever Rousseau says, whereas the Groypers are like a loose network that anybody can just claim to be in, and there's no, you know, but it's there's not that much difference. There's just really not that much difference. And you're gonna, you know, it's so you can talk about it on your internet stream, but you can't grab a megaphone and go talk about it. I don't know, man. It's tough. I get where he's coming from. And I don't know what the answer is. Like if you, it's a tough one. If you never broach the hard issues, then what are you really doing? But yeah, there's obviously a risk with getting into these things that are extremely socially unpopular.
Where they're under, you don't even realize. At Charlottesville, people are getting hunted 5 years after.
But yeah, and so everyone has to do it Nick's way. Stop. That's kind of how I feel about it. You can say you have a different approach without being so negative. That it just feels unnecessarily negative, and like there's some other more personal reason for that. He's kind of alluded to they annoy him being like, hey, you have to promote us or whatever, which I don't even know if that's PF, but it just seems kind of like unnecessarily sort of negative. Like his criticisms may be fair, but he's very, very down on it, and it doesn't seem like he needs to be.
After the fact with like Ku Klux Klan laws. You want to know why? Because they carried torches. Are they lawyers at Patriot Front? Do they know all of these esoteric statutes that can be used against them? At Charlottesville, they got charged for carrying a torch. You can't carry a torch in a parade because it's a KKK intimidation statute, and they hunted them down 5 years later for that. That's the kind of
yeah, that's fucking crazy
shit that they will do. And you saw
they don't carry torches. To be fair,
you saw it at Charlottesville. You've seen it in other places. I don't think it's a good idea. I've never supported that. I've never supported masked up rallies, and I don't.
They do. They do carry shields sometimes, don't they? Which that might be sketchy. I would assume they have like lawyer types checking into what they're doing. But you know, he mentioned RICO, and that's like they hit you with that if they want to. If they want to hit you with a conspiracy charge. There's not a lot you can do about it if you've ever talked to someone.
I don't think it's a good idea now. And some people think, you know, they're okay with that risk. Hey, man, your funeral. I'm not going to be blamed for that. Like, I'm not an unreasonable person. They want to extol, we got this fraternal group. Okay, great. Why we got to do the weird parades? Why we got to do the weird Fed parade? I don't get all that. Why do we have to have shields and jump out of trucks and we look like army men? That's fucking weird. We all look like we're in the army. We have shields. We're jumping out of a truck. Hut, hut, hut. What is that? It's a gesture towards a militia. That's what that is. It's a gesture towards a militia.
Yes.
And that's a fucking dangerous game. I'm not about to sign up for that. What it is an insinuation of we occupy space. We're force. We're like an army. And for people might think that's cool. You know, you want to do that, you do it secretly, you do it quietly. You don't go and challenge the government and say, hey, here we are, we're occupying your city. We're basically a militia with shields. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Yeah, it's always been bad vibes. I don't know where that guy came from. I don't trust him. And everybody's always pushing me, you know, you got to talk to him. I'm not, so what? I'm going to go and promote him and give him a platform. You really need to talk to this guy. Why the fuck do I need to talk to this guy? What's he going to tell me why we need these rallies? You go and give the public an answer. Why do we need rallies? He says it's for marketing. We live in the age of social media. Make a TikTok. You don't need to go and put everybody in danger of a fucking RICO stat.
I will say this in defense of the Patriot Front. One of their earlier videos from them that I saw on BitChute, this was like a few years ago, and they were doing like one of these like marches through like a community, and they were filming it, but they were talking to people on the street. And what was really interesting to me was that the people they were talking to, these like middle-class white Americans in this little town, wherever it was, were actually like receptive and positive, and some of them were like, we love what you guys are doing, like we support you. And that is actually very like white pilling to see. I'm not going to say that like most white Americans would have that reaction, but showing that there are people out there who are like, oh, like we get it and we support it was pretty cool.
Shoot, parading around the streets in a mask to market yourself. I don't trust any of that. I don't like that he slipped that in there at the end. He knows how I feel about that.
You know, I think I said pretty much everything I have to say about that. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see whose movement gets more done, I guess. Not that it's trying to pit them against each other, but nothing wrong with having different strategies going simultaneously.
Are we going to disorganize this whole thing? And it's like, speaking from my experience, having done a live stream, you know, when I got into politics, I said to myself, we basically just need to emulate what the conservatives are doing. We'll just do a parallel, everything that they're doing. We'll do, if they have Turning Point, we'll have America First students. If they have their stream, we'll have ours. He ran into is when you do America First students, they're going to dox everybody that's there. And all these 19-year-olds at state schools or, you know, even the elite universities are going to say, I want a nice job. You know, I need to be attracted to money and status and these things. And if I'm associated with Nick Fuentes, it's kind of over before it even begins. I don't want to be anywhere near this. And then you do a conference, you do AFPAC instead of the Turning Point or CPAC, and people go, but everybody's concerned about, is there a journalist? Is a journalist going to be there? You know, Paul Ingrassia, he got nominated for a position in the government, and he was literally passing by one of my speeches outside the Turning Point Convention Center, and some journalist takes a picture of him, and now it's in the record of the U.S. Senate. You know, why were you outside this rally? Why were you passing by? And you do, you know, even for that matter, a live stream in public or on the show, and people that leave a comment or leave a super chat, or people that are, you know, might be in the live stream now and again, they get freaked out about it too, even being next to me. And so there is something to say about like that. What you're saying is the right approach, but there is this kind of paradox, this like catch-22 that we're in, where it's like, we want to organize, but if we organize in the open, they're going to kind of strike at the shepherd and the sheep scatter. You know, they're going to come in hard. They're going to use reputational slander and take away people's jobs. And the whole thing is going to disorganize. But you kind of need to be out in the open to attract people. I mean, it's just sort of, if you want to have anything at scale, it's involved in that way. People are going to need to show up. There's going to be large numbers of people. You can't keep it a secret if we're going to have millions of people involved. On the other hand, if you're decentralized and discreet, if you keep it quiet, and you do Faraday bags for the phones, and, you know, you don't reveal.
Don't you mean all three, Dog Respecter?
The location of the conference, and you kind of do it underground. Well, then you don't get the left exposing you and thwarting your plans, but it also limits the growth because you can't advertise it, and it's like a secret society,
ranch chicken wrap.
You know, if people
apples.
kind of bail or betray, they could blow up the whole operation. They could burn it down on their way out. And so that's why I kind of get to this idea of critical mass, where it's like, at least for me, I still have to move very quietly. Anyone that supports me, anyone that associates with me, they still have to be extremely quiet, because if they're in any way public, they're going to get their lives destroyed. But we're kind of hoping and waiting that once the network kind of quietly expands out to a certain limit, it'll almost be become like we don't need to be quiet anymore in a certain sense. And that's why I say, that's why I kind of impress the need for, we do need a billionaire. We do need a kind of vast and large movement to serve as like a windfall, a true society, because other.
Fuck. Yeah. Sorry, guys. It wasn't worth it. It's not worth repeating.
It's just too small. They strike at it and the whole thing blows up. You think about even like, let's say I open a community center in a major city like New York or Chicago or LA.
if even one person finds out this is the all-white community center for whites only, it's going to be a press story. Local community center found to be tied to white nationalists. You're going to get Antifa. You're going to get the local village. You're going to get, everybody's going to come out and try and disrupt the plans and make it even prohibitive to continue operating. And so that's sort of and maybe I'm just like scarred from that experience of 10 years of just like beating back, this irrepressible force. Eventually we're going to need to kind of bypass that. But I think we need to hit sort of a critical mass first, because I don't know. I mean, what has your experience been since, maybe that's a good question for you, since you kind of got a lot of attention recently for your intentional community? What's sort of been, how have they been trying?
Yeah, Jessica, I literally texted her and got my lunch like 10 minutes later. Much faster than the Uber Eats would have been. This is good too. It's like chicken and rice with ranch and lettuce. Bomb.
Trying to mess with you.
The main thing they've done is contact government offices. The Fair Housing Commission is the only government office that might be able to try to fine us or create real consequences. And even if that goes through, it's probably going to be like a $15,000 fine for a first offense. But it's very asymmetric in our favor, I believe, because if we go defend ourselves in court and win, we set important legal precedent. And if we lose, okay, we pay 15 grand, which sucks, but we can afford that. Whereas if we kind of open that door and set legal precedent that it's okay to do this sort of thing, that will embolden more people to follow suit. And I think it opens a lot of possibilities. So other than that, I mean, they've contacted media outlets, local media. A lot of people around here now recognize me, which is strange. I've never had that. Nick just dropped out of the call. So here we go. All right. So let me think. We can did civil rights groups and things like that. Some groups made statements condemning us, which isn't all that consequential. So it hasn't been that effective for them. It's largely just backfired. We got hundreds of new applicants and tens of thousands of dollars in support out of it. So I thought Jews were supposed to be good at strategic thinking. Generally, they are. In this case, this one Jew on Reddit was making the most noise about it. He started like 20 different threads on different subreddits. So, I guess thank you to that guy, really. Yeah, as far as like how they could attack us, though, clearly the law is very complex, and there are always different angles for them to try, even if we, and we have been, even if they hire. Sorry, one second here. Let me, my camera has changed. All right. Even if we hired, high-priced civil rights lawyers, they might find some way to get us on development law that we hadn't paid attention to yet. And we've done our due diligence and researched every area that we possibly could, like what's relevant in starting a company. So securities laws might come into play. Obviously, yeah, discrimination law, civil rights law, the Fair Housing Act itself. And it's not like we're trying to get around these laws. We're just trying to abide by the law as far as that's possible. Now we have a $50,000 plus legal budget, and we're hiring high-priced lawyers in all of these different areas, and we're trying to build out a framework that's going to be replicable and that will work for people in different situations. So it's spurring us to kind of preempt.
50K doesn't go very far with high-priced lawyers. You'll soon find out.
Preemptively patch any holes that might exist in our overall position. So I think overall it has been good. But yeah, like, what do you do about that fact that when you organize at scale, they will target you, they will try to...
You need to skip it. This is actually the most interesting part of the conversation so far. This is kind of like, I'm really interested in the behind the scenes legal battle that's going on.
Take away your employment. Part of it, I think we have to realize that if we're going to succeed, it's not going to be a zero sacrifice route. Like, we're going to have to make some sacrifices either to our quality of life or where we
Ghost
live.
Dog Man sent $5 on Rumble. In defense of PA, Boy Scouts of America were always in parades.
Yeah, I think it's the masks, though. in defense of Nick's position, I think it's the masks part that he thinks is weird. Which, really, what are you ashamed of? What, like, oh, they're gonna, I mean, they would, the problem is now they would get fired for sure. If they came out from day one being like, hey, we're just a bunch of patriotic Americans, I don't know. They're like, it's hard to know how much the masks has shaped public opinion, but it's certainly not zero.
Or the options that we have. Some people think that keeping your options open is liberating or empowering or makes you happy, but studies actually show that when people have many different options to choose from, what they ultimately choose, they enjoy less. Like if you go to the supermarket and there are 10 different flavors of toothpaste, whatever you pick, you're not going to enjoy as much as if there was just 2 flavors of toothpaste and you went with one, or if you were given a tube of toothpaste.
Interesting.
So I think we need to look at it in that
Makes
light.
sense.
Like, in order to organize, we won't all be able to work in New York City or okay, someone else is
Mossad is in the call.
Oh, Mossad joined the call. Yeah, that figures. We have to start. We have to start another call because the screen capture got the name.
Oh no!
Yeah.
This is the
all right.
boomer
I'm going to
tech
send you
part.
another. Just
All right.
That's funny.
Okay. And we're back.
Planning on doing a higher tier of membership where some portion of the monthly payment for that will go towards paying ultimately a lawyer that'll be on staff, not just to defend us in the case that we're brought to court, but also to proactively continually do legal research. And we should have teams of lawyers. I think a lot of different services we could also provide for ourselves, like healthcare. Fraternal benefit societies can provide health insurance to their members, and if we have our own private clubs where there are also requirements to, be healthy, work out. So you might not qualify, but work out, eat vegetables and stuff. No, you look very healthy. I mean, I don't know what your routine is exactly, but
thanks.
So, I think those sorts of things, there are a lot of opportunities, not just worrying about being prosecuted, but being forced to organize. It's like having options taken away, in a way, I think is good. Like, in order to have a white intentional community, we had to form a corporation and have bylaws for that corporation. We had to have like a charter for our PMA, and we had to put a lot of thought into, okay, what are the principles that we actually want to organize around? And so it's going to constrain what we can do, but that constraint will concentrate our forces on things that are actually productive. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. Also, we are getting better at learning how to do this in anonymous ways. I know that you're not a big fan of Patriot Front, but I've become familiar with their operation recently. And, maybe optically, we don't all have to support
the frown from Nick here.
way they're going about it, but logistically, they have a very smart way of preserving the anonymity of their members, and they haven't had members doxxed over more than 7 years operating. They haven't had their members arrested except for like one very exceptional case, and then nothing really came of it. And
well, that's not right either, because they were. Oh, yeah. I took one exceptional case as one guy getting, but that's not. He's talking about the Kerr Darlene thing where they all got arrested.
Yeah, they could get caught up on some kind of charge that they're not anticipating yet, but they have lawyers on their side who are proactively looking and making sure that we're doing that due diligence and not running afoul of the law. So basically, the answer is simply that we have to be very careful and pay a lot of money to lawyers. But there are lawyers on our side, so we can pay our own guys, we can provide work for our own guys. And then in communities like this, the larger we scale, the more work opportunities we create for our people rather than relying solely on the system. Some people can work remote jobs. Some people can work construction in communities like these where, we can build our own infrastructure instead of paying 300,000 or 500,000 to the banks and construction companies that are not affiliated with us at all, who aren't on our side, we can pay our own people. I think of like in terms of real-time strategy games where you have idle villagers all over the map. You paid to create these people. If you don't click the idle villager button and locate them and put them to task, you're not going to win. Like that's one of the most important things you can do is check where are the idle workers. And we have a lot of people who are not employing. So we have to click that idle worker button and find roles for everyone that we have. And if that means, you know, getting them in formal organizations where there's some risk of possibly being doxxed, well, I think that's an acceptable risk because you could be doxxed as an individual. They could find your browsing
That's a risk people need to decide for themselves.
history. They could figure out what you believe just because of some unforced error you made. You posted the wrong picture to Facebook, or you know they tracked you down by word of mouth. So I think there's no getting around the risk of being a dissident. You know, I don't think that our position has to remain so dissident or so culturally unacceptable. The larger we get and the more vocal we get, the more people will tolerate it. Locals here, everyone I've spoken with, if typically what they'll say is, you know, I wouldn't necessarily choose to live there, but that's their right if that's what they want to do. And I think that's the attitude of the average American. So in our position where we just want to do our own communities, do our own thing and not molest anyone else, then, you know, the American public supports that. In the case of more kind of in your face activism, maybe there are higher risks, but I think creating our own spaces, that's very defensible, and it is worth some risk of doxing by joining organizations that'll actually allow for it.
Yeah, it's not so much the question of risk, because I think that to our credit, I think our people have a very high risk tolerance when it comes to things like that. Especially a lot of the young guys, they're too overzealous. A lot of them have a big appetite for, you know, swallowing maybe a lower quality of life or something like that for the sake of the movement, for the sake of the cause. My concern is more how they can render our operation inoperable through political pressure, through other things where it becomes prohibitive. Like, you know, you say, for example, well, you know, we have lawyers and we're going to fight these legal battles. And by the way, I mean, in terms of the intentional community, that is something where you could win a legal precedent. And I think that's absolutely worth taking it to the limit. So I'm not even talking necessarily, strictly speaking, about what you're doing, because you're actually right. It is a gray area legally. You have.
Yeah, it's just because the concept of precedent is so important. It's one of these things where it's like you only really get one kick of the can. So you have to do it right. But as I said before, I think Aarvoll is as good as anyone to be taking that on. So hopefully it works out.
Come up with you explained it to me pretty well. You have come up with sort of a novel structure, and it should be tested. It should be stress tested in that way. And, either it's impossible and you'll find that out legally, or there'll be a breakthrough. And
I guess actually that's a good point. If it all comes down to the way you structure your charter or whatever it is, and that doesn't work, you could always just go back to the drawing board and try a different structuring.
Will be a breakthrough for everybody.
The chicken wrap was bomb as fuck. It had rice and like shredded chicken and ranch and lettuce.
So to your credit, I think
I'd happily just eat another one of those right now if you're listening, honey.
You're going to fight that battle, and some battles are necessary to fight until the finish, until there's an outcome. But what I'm concerned about is, let's say a Patriot Front reaches a critical mass. Let's say even what you're doing reaches a critical mass, or what any of us are doing. I worry about the scenario where it starts to attract attention and it becomes a crisis. And there's then like a political call. There must be something done about this group or that group or what's happening over here. In other words, we start to win. You almost imagine not the worst case scenario, but
just like you have to face the legal battle that you have to face the social battle as well. You just it has to come to that.
First, the best case scenario. Okay, let's say it scales. Let's say it gets big. Let's say it turns into something. Well, you have to anticipate that then the attorney general is going to get a call, shut it down, find a way, and they'll do illegal stuff. We've seen throughout, and
she's listening. She asked me if I really, no, I'm going to say no. I do want one, but I'm going to say no because I'm not an asshole.
You didn't like that.
But if you're listening, I do want one. But no,
like
I'm just kidding, unless you're gonna.
Or like Ruby Ridge, and those are not perfect examples. Admittedly, they're not perfect examples at all. But those are instances of, at the end of the day, when the government has the guns, they can just show up and shoot everybody, and they could go up and just disrupt the plans. And, on some level, that's just the battle. That's just a fight that we're in. It's maybe unavoidable on some level. But I guess that's why, for someone like myself, and I said earlier, maybe I'm gun shy from years of doxing and cancellation and all this kind of stuff. I do tend to prefer a more discreet approach, only because that secrecy.
Sky News documentary on Aarvoll's return. I haven't seen that.
And operating in the shadows, for me,
I am interested because it's all kind of vague, We're building an intentional white community. Okay, go on. It's like, he doesn't really give you much from what I've seen. I'm not saying it's not out there. I haven't looked hard, but I am kind of interested. I'm interested in the real life, down to earth, tangible reality of what this looks like, what it's supposed to look like, what they plan for it to look like. And I don't really know.
It gives me so much more wiggle room. Like, we have groypers in so many places, like followers of mine that I'm regularly in touch with. It just wouldn't be possible if we had a membership organization, if we had any kind of public facing activities. And I remember, I'll give you an example. Like when we did AFPAC 3 a few years ago.
He says it wouldn't be possible, but it's like, wouldn't the worst risk really just be like people would lose their jobs?
We had 1,200 people show up in the Orlando Marriott. It's their biggest resort, I think, in the whole world. And we had LED video walls, and Jared Taylor was there, and he said, how did you guys even do this? He said, because of course he has been doing American Renaissance for 30 years, and they've chased him out of every venue. The place he landed is this state park in Tennessee. It's the only place that legally they have to let them meet. And the cops show up. They prevent Antifa from storming the compound and everything. And I said, well, we just kind of use secrecy. We're extremely discreet. We're just kind of a little sneaky in the way that we do it.
Right. Well, so this, I don't know if he should be saying this with the lawsuit going on, because isn't the whole lawsuit him being like, hey man, we didn't lie about who we are, like they fucked us, but now he's kind of saying, yeah, we're a little sneaky, we're a little secret. Oh, Allison wants you guys to know it was sour cream, not ranch, which I did on some level. I did know that. I think it's just because I said ranch before I ate it, and then I just rolled with that. But yeah, it was sour cream, you guys. Allison wants everyone to know.
And it's like that discretion affords us such a bigger latitude in terms of possibilities. And I, you could say maybe it requires two approaches. Like, I certainly think your battle is worth fighting to the finish, and someone's going to have to just tough it, like you said, and tolerate the risk, because this is a battle that's worth seeing it through. But on the other side, I do think that, look, if we want the most brilliant minds, the most brilliant technologists, because I really do believe in, we got to get the right.
It's not illegal. I mean, that's for a judge to decide, isn't it? If, the other guys are going to argue like this is like totally destructive to our brand. It's reputational death for us to host this. And then the judge is going to decide if that's a valid reason to cancel or not. So if I were Nick, I would want the judge thinking that they did know who I was when they signed the contract. That's what I would want. And I wouldn't want a clip of me saying we're very sneaky and secretive to get these things happening. I wouldn't be putting that out there if it was me, but you know, I don't know what Nick knows.
Right people. It's not just any people. It's the right people. Oh, brother.
What is it? What does this one say? Can't even see the
Shabbos
name.
Yarvin says the.
Okay.
Shabos Yarvin.
All right. Is there a way to make these private?
I don't know. I don't use
Is he
this.
going? He went into his Twitter DMs. What is this? Here's the. Hey, bro. Here's the link. Why is this on screen? Oh man, shit you do when you're new. And then what? He pulled up the YouTube chat to like, oh, this is just like a different window. Yeah, you know, streaming is harder than people realize, or it's more complicated than people realize.
To do it, and we're not going to go over to X. That was not an option. Yeah, the stream is back. We're back on track. Nothing ever happened. This has been a seamless stream.
Yeah, I just think that we're getting to the point where obviously, in my opinion, one of the biggest things that Trump did that's positive in our favor is eradicating the wokeness on some level and some of these PC attitudes, because I think, you know, a lot of people will say we need this like elite strategy. And I'm in agreement in a sense. People say it's not about getting 50% of the population on our side to vote for a thing. Structurally, it's a little bit more complicated than that. However, I do think that in order to reach the elite people or high human capital people, it does involve casting a very wide net. In order to get, let's say it is 1 out of 100 people or something, or 1 out of 1,000, it does involve casting a wide net, but also changing the attitudes of society and making it so that these viewpoints are no longer taboo and people are kind of willing to explore them or tolerate them to a greater extent. And like you said, in Arkansas or in your, you know, community, your neighborhood or whatever of the local villagers or something, when they say, well, let them do what it is they want to do. Maybe culturally it's always been like that, but certainly the country overall, I think, is closer to accepting our position than they were 10 years ago. And so I think that we're kind of still waiting on things to change a little bit for it to be possible to organize a little bit more effectively. We're kind of waiting on simultaneously for things to reach a point where there's more acceptance in the mainstream, but also there's enough of us sort of like that can't cancel us all, or, you know, we have enough backing from institutions.
Yeah, I was the AFPAC in Detroit last summer. I was there, and it was a good time. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to do one this year. Allison was planning to go with me to the next one, but now it's unclear if there ever will be another AFPAC. But yeah, there's a lawsuit going. They said that they sold 1,600 tickets in the lawsuit, and I haven't heard any updates about it since it was filed, but that's not very unusual. Also, wasn't Nick charged for assault? I don't think that happened. I think that was reported in like one of those like Indian like websites that Marla lady was pressing charges. And then I never heard any, you know, I feel like those things move a little bit quicker. And if that was real, Nick having the profile that he has, that there would have been some chatter in the media about it. So I think that was just fake news that he actually got charged for assault, but I don't know.
Players, I think we're kind of still waiting for that inflection point. And once that happens, I think it happens all very quickly. But that's kind of to finish up on that thought from before.
Right. So I think it's a matter of identifying what we can do now. I think we have a lot of resources that just aren't mobilized. Like I was saying, we have a lot of idle villagers who could be put to use. I think a think tank, this is something we discussed when I went up to Chicago. That's just an obvious thing that would benefit everyone.
1,600 is a lot when you consider they start above $100. I don't know exactly what the bottom price is, but it's more than 100. And of course, that's the cheap part. People are traveling, they're driving, they're flying, they're getting hotels.
If there was just a physical space that we controlled, that we could bring people in who were human, elite human capital, who had demonstrated excellence in one regard or another, and rotate those people in and out, like a content house, but for high IQ right wingers, and they could.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, Holocaust, is that being a Nazi isn't a protected class, but being gay is. I'm Nazi, I'm joking, but you know what I mean. Being a political undesirable is not a protected class.
Could constantly be putting out new ideological work. They could be kind of keeping the conversation fresh. That's another thing. We've kind of seen a decline of more of the high IQ theory content.
That's true, but there's only so many times you can fucking debate philosophy. like people are like, oh, we used to have more, and it's like, well, because we figured out a lot of this shit. In 2016 was like an exciting time to be sort of new to politics and new to the political, because there was so many like red pills to consume, so many interesting bits of data and things to hear about, theories, people making connections. But at a certain point, it's like, kind of got most of it down, and all there really is to do now is sludge through the daily news like I do on the show, and it's not that interesting. But there's only you can only have so many interesting philosophical theories before it just turns into a kind of intellectual masturbation.
As there's been more of just like ordinary people waking up to these issues, you have to kind of go down to the least common denominator. But at the same time, like, we can't abandon that harder theoretical edge. And maybe a content house like that doesn't.
Being a white male isn't a protected class. I don't know about that. That could be true, but I'm not aware specifically.
Influence everyone, but maybe it does keep people from going to the competing tech bro faction, or like the.
Yeah, there's lots of possibilities. Maybe he was charged and they got it thrown out. But I feel like if that happened, there'd be some kind of intrepid journalist talking to the police, getting that story, but maybe not.
Zionist.
I would say most likely is he just never was charged, and that one article that said he was fake Indian news. That would be my guess.
Bapsphere. And so I think something like that, there's, to my mind, no reason why that shouldn't already exist. Like, real estate is a good investment beyond that. There's nothing wrong with owning a place and running a content business out of it. Like, Alex Jones has a studio. He's basically streaming 24/7. And you have your show, and you do a great job with your show. You cover certain major news stories, but there's also, I feel like there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit where we could be putting out content that anyone in any local area would like. People here pay so much attention to what's going on in local.
I would, on this topic of like media, I would be cool if Nick put a little bit more energy into Cozy and trying to make Cozy a thing. I know he's kind of just like washed his hands of it, but it's like, I think it's a really good idea to have a website that people can just go to when they want to, and there's just like a selection of like 3 to 5.
Austin, Texas sent $5. J.D. Vance presidency is coming very soon.
Maybe, probably, likely. Thank you for the 5. Where you can go and it's just like, instead of like going to YouTube and getting hit with like 1,000 different options, it's just like 5 of our guys are live or whatever. You can pick, and he has his mugshot on. Well, yeah, the mugshot. I do remember the mugshot now that you mention it. You can see this is in my Google history because I've looked it up previously. Oh, okay. Well, shit. The Court of Appeals. Wait, this is 2018. Conviction for second-degree assault. Is this the flight attendant thing I hear about? Because this is 2018. This can't be. I've heard people say that. Wait a minute. What? Nicholas Andres Fuentes III. This is not the right guy, right? There are people in the chat picking up on that. This isn't the right guy, unless he changed his middle name. Well, what's going on, Nick? What's going on, big guy? In 2017, Mr. Fuentes attempted to steal a can of beer from a gas station convenience store. When the clerk confronted Mr. Fuentes, he became irate, went around the store's checkout counter, and began physically attacking the clerk. Broke one of the clerk's fingers. Damn, Nick, that's cold. That's cold. That's him, all right. Oh, this is from ABC Chicago, so this is a real news organization. This isn't the fucking Jeetistan Times.
Breaking news tonight, we have learned controversial political pundit Nick Fuentes has been charged with battery in a western suburb of Chicago. He has been described as a white nationalist accused of making racist and sexist comments. In 2022, former President Donald Trump faced controversy for hosting him at a dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Tonight, Fuentes is charged with misdemeanor battery for an incident that happened last month in Berwyn. Details of the incident were not released. He is due in court next week.
Well, we know. I think we know the incident in question. Doesn't look like there's really much more here. Rising GOP star spent 3 years in jail for child sex offenses. Well, that's not good. Connor Ernest, linked to Nick Fuentes, faces rape charges. Nick Fuentes files motion to seal records in criminal case citing safety concerns. That's in January. Muhammad, homicide suspect, attempted assassination against him. I mean, yeah, he showed up outside his door with a gun, so pretty reasonable claim. Anyway, so there you go. Not clear if he had the record sealed or not. I could have clicked the article, but who really gives a shit?
Electoral politics or just crime in the area. So we were thinking, we might do a local newspaper in our own area from our perspective. And so like if we could have more professionalized media content production hubs, I think that it would be a much wider net that ultimately people would fall into. So it doesn't have to cost millions of dollars. It's really a matter of maintaining the physical spaces where this is done. All you need is a fiber optic internet connection. We have that down a dirt road in Arkansas. It doesn't take a $1 million, $10 million studio to create content that will make a real difference. And in my experience, people need
get Cozy popping, man. Get Aarvoll streaming on Cozy. There's other people who would stream on Cozy if they could. Nick literally just has to give. I think Nick is just like there's too much drama, too much headaches for him, and also he becomes kind of like anything they say that's crazy can come back and bite him. So I get why he doesn't want to do it, but it's like there's got to be some competent groiper you just put in charge of it and be like, lost Beardson? No, Beardson still streams once in a blue moon, doesn't he? And they like, I think people have all started streaming to kick, like Jim does that too, but they multi-stream here And if more people were multi-streaming, yeah, the only ones in the last 12 shows is like Vince and Nick. I don't count people like Wayne Dupree and Jesse Lee, because if you're not, I mean, Bosef is a real streamer. If you're not like looking at the chat at all, then you're not really on the platform.
Deadlines, they need incentives, they need a schedule, they need leadership, you know. And like,
What's weird is those guys all do good on Kick, and I cannot get going. I don't know how they did it, because like Jimbo will have like 300-400 people watching on Kick, and then like 100 on Cozy, and it's the same for Tyler Russell, I think. There's a lot of groypers on Kick, but they don't want to watch old LP. What's that about?
Relied on decentralized content production all this time.
Yeah, referee cozy drama. I know. That's what I'm saying. But there's got to be somebody who would take it on, like without pay, who is competent and could just be head of the project. Could be given the power to say, you can bring streamers on, you can kick streamers off, and just try to turn it into something.
But I don't think, I mean, that's not how mainstream media operates, for a reason. The best practice is to get a crew together and get working. So a think tank,
Picked Alaska
content creation hub.
Like Ethan Ralph tweeted that he would come back to Cozy, and Nick should let Ethan Ralph come back. In my opinion, it's his website, but he could add a bunch of streamers and people would be coming. Super expensive, yeah, but does the cost really significantly go up if you have more people streaming? I don't know, maybe.
Things like this I think would be very valuable. Also, community centers, like there's a very strong legal
nice one,
precedent
Insurgent.
for the ability of country clubs to discriminate if they choose. You don't have to dox the location of these community centers, but like we have guys in our network with the resources to crowdsource places where we can build that sense of organic community. We can invite people outside of our ideological spheres into our spaces, into our communities. So those are the sorts of things, like I don't see any reason to refrain from all that kind of work. So I guess, where do you draw the line? What are the sorts of projects that we could mobilize our people now versus what constitutes too much risk, or what should we not be doing?
Well, I think that I tend to encourage people to take the initiative. I think that, a lot of people, the biggest question I get on my show, and I hate it, people super chat me at the end of the show every night and they say, well, what are we going to do?
I don't know who Yex is. I have no idea, but I mean, yeah, it's entirely possible Nick has his reasons for not doing that.
Tell me what to do. I want to work for you. I want to do something. And I almost feel like at this stage in the game, it's like a startup. It's almost like a tech startup. And I look at it in the sense that we don't have a ton of bandwidth. We don't have a ton of resources. there's not a lot of room for fat. There's not a lot of room.
Yeah, this movement right now is like Silicon Valley when they're all in the kitchen. This movement right now is 4 dudes in a kitchen with 4 laptops trying to make something happen.
For extra. We're not like Walmart where you can, people can kind of get lost in how vast it is. And so you almost need everybody that's involved to be a Swiss Army knife. And they almost kind of need to be an independent node, so to speak. I don't know that there's too many.
I have a dentist appointment in 90 minutes and I got to record this fucking video. I guess I'll be doing that after the appointment. But I saw a clip and I would really like to get to that part. I don't know where it is though.
Roles, because there are so many people that would say, hey, I'm really gung-ho and maybe I'd like to do something, but maybe lack skills or maybe lack any kind of initiative. There's no ability to like initiate projects or initiate anything. And I wonder how valuable that is at this stage in the game. I value at this point more the super intelligent, entrepreneurial. They don't even necessarily need to be super intelligent, but maybe more entrepreneurial, maybe, like you said, have a leadership capability, and people that are going to say, you know what, I'm going to take my skill set, like you said, maybe it's a newspaper, maybe it's a publishing house, maybe they do a live stream, and they say, I'm going to start something myself, because I encounter so many people. I meet up with people all the time across the country who they're working a normal job. They watch my show and then they start their own project, whether it's a nonprofit or they start a book club or they start a campus organization or whatever. And then I kind
Bowling
of go
club.
and meet, and there's like a whole other world that I don't know about. It's a group of people that I've never met.
Remember LP's dating advice. If you can't become a streamer, a high profile celebrity streamer, and you're trying to get married, start a bowling club. That's all the advice I got.
But they're all big fans. They're all kind of on board with the doctrine. And they say, these are our plans. This is what we're doing. We took over this. We took over that. And this is how we did it. And this is our plans for expansion. And I think that in my mind, it's almost more like a confederation at this point. And so it's like you have these little scenes in different cities, in different states, different age levels, some in politics, some in the private sector. And I look at it as sort of like a patchwork that eventually we're going to knit together, that eventually over time, it's like I was talking about before, this like slow and steady creep, the kind of tentacles going everywhere, that eventually it reaches this critical mass. And eventually people are kind of, it's unavoidable to encounter each other when you're in the business of politics or some other such thing. And so for me, when you talk about kind of utilizing the villagers, it's beyond the scope of either of our organizations at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as you're concerned, you have a franchise model where you have a system. And I think that you want eventually to have other people kind of take that program and start their own thing. It's sort of like open source software. I'm going to take the legal model you have, and I'm going to start my intentional community over here, because you can't manage all of them. You know, we don't have big enough staff or budget or bandwidth. And same with me. You know, I do a show every night. I do a number of other projects.
Yeah, I got to get those streamer glasses so I can start streaming my dentist appointments.
I can't run every college Republican chapter and every little thing. It's almost incumbent on us to create a sort of officer class. It's sort of like a cadre. That's kind of the word that sticks out in my mind, is like a cadre. It's a country of 350 million people. We're going to need like 100,000 professional revolutionaries, so to speak, or people that are not just the grug level, you know, pardon the expression. They're not bricklayers. They're not people that need to be told what to do, but people that could conceivably be middle management or entrepreneurial. And it's like, once we get 1,000, 5,000 of those guys, those are going to be the kind of party officials, party apparatchiks, as an analogy. And I'm kind of interested in inspiring those people, indoctrinating those people. They watch the show, they get the ideas, they get the inspiration, they kind of take a project into their own hands. I think about even like with my show,
D-Live could
people
never.
love the show. They say, what can I do?
Nor Twitch.
I say, start a clipping channel. That's something so basic where it's like, anyone can learn video editing. Anybody can take the 5 hours it takes to learn a video editing software on an iPhone and start an Instagram account and start pushing out the clips. And they're not always going to be perfect, and some get traction and some don't. But that's something that's like such an imminent thing that you can do on your phone. And like you said, it doesn't need to be big budget or high tech. You could just start and just do that, generate an income, support the show. And that's just like one example of, why don't you tell me what you can do?
No, people don't watch on Facebook.
You like
there would be like 3 people. It's another one of these dead platforms.
Show? Okay, clip the show. You like books? Okay, there's another guy who watches the show. He started a Telegram channel, and this guy, like a machine, churns out PDFs of books, of like old Catholic books, old far-right books. And his Telegram is now like a library. I use it as a resource. And he super chatted one day. I told him, I said, you start the Telegram. I'm not going to do it. You do it. And he did it. And now it's like a thing. And so it's like, rather than, I like your analogy of the villagers, but or the workers, so to speak. I would maybe add on that and say, how do we tap into the minds? How do we get them to act as sort of like independent self-improving agents in the system. That's, to me, how we really take advantage of the full breadth of the human capital. So that maybe that's my perspective on it, but I think maybe we're in agreement on that also.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You need people with agency for your organization to run efficiently, but there is the issue of scale. You know, with a patchwork or a confederacy, you can have a bunch of self-starters doing parallel projects, but there's a reason why Amazon is hyper successful or Walmart is hyper successful, because they vertically integrate, they organize across different domains, they meet their own supply needs in their kind of production chains. And we can do the same thing. And I think if we're going to have to scale to the extent necessary, we will ultimately have to. So in order to do that, like I look at what
I'm not gonna have time to get through the whole thing. I'm gonna go find the clip I wanted to talk about on, because I saw it was Asha Logos who tweeted it. What's his, this is, yeah, Asha Logos. I was like, wait, is that his name? Okay, he wrote a wall of fucking text here, but basically he says like Nick couldn't be more wrong here if he tried. And this is Nick saying that people like the world, and I wanted to talk about this one.
People like the world. People like actually the way that things are. I mean, I think that we don't like diversity. We don't like crime. But like, I'm going to be honest with you, when I go to Los Angeles, like I love that city, and I'm willing to say, yeah, I can't leave my bag parked in my car. And yeah, I got to be concerned about certain things, but I like going there. I like the food. I like the lots of people. I like the excitement. And a lot of people like the world. And it's like, it's a question of how do you make it attractive for people to really want to be a part of it? I guess that's kind of, in a way, I sort of am a student of Trump, where Trump says you got to make it sexy, you got to make it hot, you got to, people want to be in the world. And I don't know how much, you know, this proposal of we're going to return to the land, we're going to take you out of the world, we're going to remove you from the world and put you in this place. And it's not, you're obviously still alive in the world, but it's like you're not in society. I feel like maybe my disagreement is I like society. I think other people like society. And I think what they like about it is, you know, there's a reason that things are the way they are. There's a reason we live in a very liberal, globalized world. And
yeah, so I think Nick is fundamentally right here. And it's something I think about a lot. And I can't judge Asha Logos because I didn't read his wall of text, and I'm just frankly not going to. Like, I'm happy for you or sorry that happened or whatever. But I will posit a kind of an assumption of where he's coming from, and it sort of goes back to what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about people being maladjusted. But maladjusted isn't maybe the right exact term for this kind of thing. It's more like lost in the sauce of online. And like what I was saying, there's people who will like chastise you if you like hip hop, if you like Mos Def. You know, people will say that's N-word noise. You shouldn't listen to that kind of thing. And it's like you're kind of lost in the sauce. And I think maybe that's where Asha Logos is coming from. And I think about this because like I have a tendency to idealize 1950s America. I look at that as like one of the most ideal periods in human history.
Iron Cow 86 cent $14 on Rumble. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the $14. I really appreciate that, sir. Thanks very much. But I like in 1950s America, they were watching Leave It to Beaver and they were listening to like the Beach Boys, and I like the Beach Boys, but I don't want to watch Leave It to Beaver every day. But that's, you know, that's like wholesome white Christian content. Then this is the hard pill to swallow. I should want that, But if I can watch Game of Thrones and Banshee and Spartacus Blood and Sand, I'm watching that. That's what I'm watching. You know what I mean? I'm not watching Leave It to Beaver. And so this is the problem with this kind of lost in the sauce. You have to be white, and the world is terrible. You can't like things. Okay, you can't like goy slop. You know, this whole thing is what I do. I do like some of it. You know, it's a tough. And going back to the Amish thing, I think the Amish have shit figured out. I think the Amish are living, they're like the most well-adjusted modern white American people, basically. You want to talk about well-adjusted, living correctly? I look at the Amish and I say, that's it. And yet I don't want it. You see the problem here? This is why Nick is right. Even if your knee-jerk reaction is to be like, I don't like the world, I hate the world. Well, like Amish land is waiting for you. You could go apply anytime to join the Amish, but you don't. Maybe you do like the world more than you think.
We can say that our country is being killed. It's not killing itself, and like it's the elites that are making it this way. I don't know. I think people do kind of, it's attractive, a lot of the things. They like the attractions. They like the recreation. They like, on some level, the multiculturalism. They like excitement. And so I'm just saying, like, you know, for people that are really, not even just for the elite human capital, but for anybody, it's like they also want familiarity. They're of this world, like it or not, we're of the world. Are people really drawn to like a hard reset where I just question of how attractive is the offer where it's like, you're going to eat your porridge. It's like, hey, listen up, you're going to get in line. You're going to work for me. You're going to eat your porridge. It doesn't have any sugar or cinnamon or spices. We're going back to the land and you're going to fucking like it because it's your duty. And it's like, and on some level, like, yeah, we're going there, but we kind of need to reach people where they are. And it almost reminds me of like, it's like the early Zionist movement.
Well, you know, the Amish aren't even that like Luddite, whatever. They're not even that like anti-tech. Like I think they have, like they watch YouTube videos on their phone and stuff like that. But like obviously you can't watch porn. There's kind of like there's boundaries within. But they drive cars. You know what I mean? There's different. I think there's different kind of flavors out there. But even the more technological ones, it's like you can't watch Game of Thrones and Spartacus Blood and Sand over there. That is you know, that's too raunchy. It's verboten.
Where you're kind of like the Zionists that's saying, we're going to go and work on farms in Palestine. And the Jews are like, Palestine? We like New York. We like America. You know, we like Europe. We like living in degeneracy and filth. We like this kind of stuff. And it's not to say that, you know.
Yeah, they do have smartphones. That guy who makes the videos, I forget his name, but he did that Christian guy we used to watch, that guy who lives like who has no electricity. I forget his name, but that same guy, he's done lots of videos with the Amish, and they're more modern than you maybe picture some of these communities.
Like, and I'm not knocking the project, like, but I would say maybe, and this is my unsolicited advice, if I were doing what you're doing, and we have this discussion because let's use this as the example. We both wanted to start a school because we both see the value of, look, the young people need to be taught. They do need to be I include myself in that. I would like, you are much more educated than me on philosophy. Someone like yourself could tutor someone like me. There's a value in that, and we need to get people there. But the way that you explained it is you said we need the whole experience. We need a true like platonic academy where it encompasses, we're going to live together. We're going to work out together. It's going to be physical where we're working out, but we're also learning and it's intensive. And my thought was, I want like a 3-month program in a city. And it's like, we're going to live in a fun city and we're going to do a crash course program. We're going to make it attractive and brief so that people can kind of get in and get on with their lives.
I just feel like I don't have time for any of this. Like, if there was a guy who lived in Olympia who was into working out and was like, he liked my content and he wanted, I guess I would be open to trying it out. But it's like I know there's a guy from Twitter who's in this area who has kind of a largest Twitter account and that, and he's like one of our guys. And he goes hiking, and I think they genuinely like have like group hikings, and I just think I don't have time. I don't have time to do this. It's a nice thought. I just don't feel like I have the time. But you know, that's kind of an excuse. You can always make time.
And I think that kind of symbolizes maybe the disconnect where it's like, I agree in principle with everything you're saying.
It's hard when you have kids, though. It's not. You can do it, but you can't just do it on a whim. I can't just go off on a 3-hour hike and be like, "See ya, babe."
But I also, I'm not that much younger than you, but knowing these young people even younger than me, it's like, how do we get a perfect SAT score student who gets admitted to Harvard? How do we get them in the door?
It's not that I like filth. It's that there's no TV shows that aren't, but there is though, and you wouldn't like them. If you're being honest, what is that show? These guys paid me like $200 to promote their show on Twitter. Pot Twins. Okay. This is a 2024 show. You could watch this if you want. Looks like I think the show got canceled and they're not even like tweeting it anymore. Hold on. Let me see if I can find, bruh, how far back do I have to go to find the actual? I think they gave up on the actual show because nobody watched it. So is there clips on YouTube or anything? Trailer.
When do you or do you not install bathtub for people who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender?
We do not. We are a paint store.
Attention, X. This is your captain speaking. We've got a spanking new family sitcom starring Kevin Sorbo. Yep, Hercules in a friggin' comedy.
Hercules? Nah, no one would believe that.
FYI.
Oh, and there's also John Lovitz.
Want to see a picture?
Barry Bostwick.
Why?
And a lot of other funny non-boomer types who kill it.
Agoraphobic?
Spiders don't bother me that much.
It's one of these things where it's like, I like the idea, but not for me. I'm going to watch the filth. Whatever. Not everything I watch is, I gave the kind of more extreme examples. It's not even that like that's my favorite thing, but you know, right now Allison and I are watching Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, and on deck is Extreme Peace, which I don't think is particularly filthy or whatever, but neither is Breaking Bad, you know, but it's like Breaking Bad is a lot more adult than this show for sure. So it is what it is. You can say there's nothing out there but filth, but that's kind of cope. The truth is you just don't want to watch that stuff. You know, there's a whole Hallmark channel. There's what is that Christian? What's the guys who make the Christian movies? Lifetime or whatever. There are all these Lifetime movies. You could be watching those movies. You just don't want to.
Of our school. And my thought is like,
because they're not that good. I'm sorry, but they're not that good. Maybe the Daily Wire Arthur movie will be good. We can hope.
Something sexy, something, fun, something exciting, something that's different, striking. It's sort of like Elon Musk doing a sports car for Tesla before he did, an economical car, an economy model car. It's the same thing. It's like, how do we get them into the sports car? of being in the right wing, just to kind of give them a taste. And maybe that's just like a difference in approach. Maybe, you're very much more like, we have to do things a certain way. The process is almost the point of it, like going through the process. There's a deep value in that. And me, I'm like, we got to get them through the door. We got to get these numbers up. We got to get them through the door. We got to get them here. We got to get them to want it. So maybe that just reflects a difference in disposition. But I feel like that's maybe because I'm with you. We want to get everybody there, but it's like, I just worry about the demands we're placing on people in terms of they got to want it first. I want to make them want it. I want to give them that inspiration. And it's not to say that you're not inspiring them, but you're coming at it from like, we have to undergo almost like an unpleasant experience of unattaching ourselves from the world to maybe spiritually refine ourselves. And when you talk about scale, I don't know that that's how you achieve scale. I think that's how you achieve like a Benedictine, monkish order, and you'll get what, you set out to achieve, but it won't be a massive scale.
Yeah. So I think like I said, he's onto something there, and it might be a hard pill to swallow, but it requires you to be a little bit honest with yourself. If you hate how degenerate the world is, why do you participate? Why don't you go join the Amish? It's a fair question. Maybe you have a good answer. I know it's not easy to pick up and change your life, but it's a fair question. Anyway, that's a long show. I'm going to have to go. I got to run. Thank you for watching, you guys. Thank you, everybody who sent in the super chats. Really appreciate it. You guys have a great day. Locals video coming out soon. Okay. I will catch you on the flip side. It's not the new stand. You know what the real problem is with, like, once I go past the 2 hours, there's almost like no super chats. I only do it when I want to cover something. This is very diminishing returns for me in terms of my time. But if there's something I'm trying to get through, I'll just try to get through it. All right, you guys, have a good one. Catch you later. Peace.
I was born in a prison with no hope for escape. I got used to the silence as I stuck in my cage. You cannot miss what you have never seen before. But deep inside you know there must be more. You cannot miss what you have never seen before. But deep inside you know there must be more. But I could not follow. It was a language I didn't know. I seen a light and it used to blind me. Was it real or just a dream? No, you cannot miss what you have never seen before. Deep inside you know there must be more.